Welcome back to the Apex Academy VOD review series, with now featuring more consistent uploads. This one's going to be Bona Fide Esports, or should I actually call them Sola Fide Esports, as well in online tournament number 2, where they came in second place. And this is the team of Metro, Turns, and Pride. This one was really interesting because this is the one that TSM won, landing Fragment East, and in that very same tournament, this Sola Fide dropped Fragment West, and rather than running what TSM was running with the Wraith Pathfinder Watson, they were running Wraith Watson Gibraltar. So they were landing right next to each other, but with completely different playstyles and a completely different composition. So it was really cool to kind of compare and contrast what separated first and second place. I had a lot of fun with this one, and I always love doing a VOD review on people I've never done them before, especially when my ex-teammate Turns, the homie. So this one was really fun. Keeping the intro nice and short. Hope you guys enjoy it. Alright, so again, a little bit of background. Turns is one of my former teammates. I played with him in Poland. He's part of Sola Fide Esports, more coolly referred to as Bona Fide Esports. They got second place, which is actually pretty big. This is a very big placement for this team. Shut up, Uzi. I don't care about your fucking sex ventures. Alright, we're gonna watch second place team. Many people don't really know them because they aren't as known players. They don't have like as big brands, but they definitely showed up and I think made a good name for themselves. At least standings wise, definitely did. They got second place, which is big, actually, very big. And they're not a team that's been long together, I think.
Thank God.
All right, so I don't know in terms competitively where this team drops. Okay, so they apparently dropped capital. I didn't know any of this. This again, the only semblance of this tournament that I know is that is from what we just saw from TSM. So it'll be very interesting. I always like watching VODs of other teams in like the same exact series of games, because then it's like you kind of get like a bigger picture of the big picture. That makes sense. So it's curious now to see first and second place drop in both Cap East and West. So yeah, so for those again that don't know, if you happen to just join and you didn't watch before, TSM did drop Frag East, and SF is dropping Fragment West. So it's very interesting that both Cap droppers got first and second. So their early game is probably going to be drastically different than TSM's, I'm guessing. I mean, them being second is very good, so it's also really cool to see that. But TSM is one of the most, of all the teams I have reviewed, and it comes to no surprise that TSM is one of the most disciplined teams that I've seen in terms of their early game. Again, I don't know, Demonic, actually, can you shed some light? How long have they been playing together? I don't actually know. They've been playing for 1 to 2 months. Okay. Alright, so I don't remember TSM's exact timing, but I can tell you 100% TSM has, like, this will be actually very interesting to compare and contrast both literally Fragment East and Fragment West drops. TSM dropped, I'm pretty sure TSM never was this late in leaving Fragment East. So this is what I was talking about, where most teams would prefer to loot a little bit more to sacrifice a better spot later. We're also going to see a different dynamic too, because with Gibraltar, you actually can afford to do that a little bit more than with a Pathfinder. If you have a Pathfinder, you're a bit more hard pressed on finding the circle and getting to a good spot before everyone else. With a Gibraltar, you have a little bit of leeway. So you are going to see a bit of a different play style between these two teams, which I think is very cool. It'll be very cool and interesting to see because they both placed first and fucking second. So it'll be very cool to compare and contrast both team comps and strategy overall on how they made it work. Alright, so let's take a look at their ideology.
Fucking mirror these guys.
They went to the right. They went far.
That's a big play. I'm immediately going to talk about this. So because obviously we just got done watching TSM. TSM obviously ran Wraith Pathfinder Watson. They have beacons. If you are a Gibraltar team like this team, Turns just said it. They have a path, they have beacon, let's mirror them. One weakness to Pathfinder, kind of a weakness, and the weakness depends on that team's strength of playing Pathfinder. I know I'm saying a lot right now, but trust me, it'll all make sense. One weakness to Pathfinder is if you're playing against a team, if you're mirroring a team like TSM that knows how to play Pathfinder, then you can use their knowledge and the way you can read the way that TSM is rotating in order to pretend like you almost have your own Pathfinder, and it kind of allows you to understand where the circle is based on how they're moving. So it's kind of a way of having a Pathfinder without actually having one. Now, again, a lot of that strategy right there depends on the team you're actually tailing, right? If you're fucking tailing some Gold 4 team because they're allowed to play in these tournaments that's playing Pathfinder with a beacon, you know, you're probably shit out of luck because they don't know where these circles end. You're probably not being smart about it. You gotta follow the teams that know how to actually play the game.
Behind us, right here. Just fly through here. I think we can make it all the way deep.
So TSM did this exact rotation. They are actually straight up mirroring TSM. TSM did the same fucking thing. They took this balloon. TSM went to the donut that's over here in thermal.
Is that house taken? It is. That house taken too.
Yeah, I know you have been
Sure,
Gog. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. I saw fences in dome. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All right, so this is TSM in here again. So again, this is actually gonna. I'm actually glad they dropped Fragment West. This is gonna be a very and they run Jibby. This is gonna be a very interesting series to watch because this is not gonna happen often. That first and second drop next to each other, and one of them plays off the other one because of Pathfinder. All right, so this is like a really... All right, so let's talk about the game a little bit, right? So these guys landed with TSM. They're basically mirror TSM's movement, like almost to the fucking T. I'm starting to wonder if you guys know TSM, if you guys watched the TSM part. TSM's in the donut right now, okay? Eventually a team takes the bottom part of their donut and eventually also fucks them a little bit when TSM rotates out. So I'm very curious to see... I don't know what team that was behind them. I think it could have been Snipedown's team, but I'm curious if it was this team. So this will be very interesting. This spot sucks, but they can make it work. It's Darwin. How cute he is. He's the cuter of the two cats. We have two cats. He's the cuter one. His name is Darwin, though. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. So again, this is similar to, so if you have been here this whole time and you watched the TSM VOD, I talked a lot about how to hold a massive area of land, I guess, I don't know, solo as a team. They're not technically doing it here, but something like this, and this is something you see in TSM, right? You see the Wraith player and a lot of other teams. It's not just TSM that does this. But you see the Wraith player a little bit further out. Like always a Q distance away, right? Like if Turns got into like a problem, right? Like if someone like wide peeked him right now, like an entire team climbed over this railing and just beamed him, he's a Q distance away from his team. So if you are an aspiring Wraith player, playing like this, a little bit away from your team is always good. Because basically, a lot of this early game, if you have a position already locked down, a lot of this early game is all about just laying low in your position and just kind of looking around, gathering as much information on everybody around you as possible. Because the more information you have, the more informed of a decision you can make later on once you have to rotate or have to make a move. So this is really, really big. I am always a big fan of this kind of like split, especially if you have Jibby and Watson. One other thing I'm going to touch on real quick before we continue is because we just got done watching TSM, right? They run Wraith, Pathfinder, and Watson. Most of the Wraith, Pathfinder, Watson team dynamic when it comes to fighting and stuff like that typically is the Pathfinder and Wraith play on each other, right? The Pathfinder, most teams, I'm not saying TSM, but I'm saying most teams play with the Pathfinder playing on the Wraith's aggression and capitalizing where like the Wraith may have done a ton of damage or something. And then he like cues in and then kind of cleans up. One thing I like about TSM is that Alberlelli plays a lot with reps. I think it's very important to play around the Watson. But when you're playing Gibraltar Watson, the team dynamic shifts heavily from the Wraith kind of always having a backup to basically the Gibraltar and the Watson always play side by side together. More or less. You never really want to leave each other. Like, there's no point at which, like, it makes sense for, like, for example, the Gibraltar to flank an entire team and leave his Watson alone. The Watson needs the Gibraltar to stay alive in a team like this. And that, in turns, then makes them enable each other. So, turns playing out here, I really, really like. Make sure, if you are playing like this as a Wraith, make sure you're always 1 Q distance away, basically, from your team. But this is good. It allows them to get extra information. It allows them to show face a little bit more, show position. They don't... One thing that I think they should do here, but again, it's not a big deal. It's not a big thing. is they should whatever area turns is gonna hold, put like 2 fences there. And it's not so much to like help turns like turn the fight if someone pushes him. It's more so to show position that turns is there. Somebody is there. Because showing presence is one of the biggest things about this game in particular that's important. Like I've been saying all night, if you don't show presence, it very much allows teams to push you, not because they know you're there and they want to push you, but more so because they think it's open. The spot that you're in is open, so they think they can just walk in and take it, right? But if you're showing your Watson fences, that's what most teams see it, is if they see Watson fences, they understand, okay, this spot is free. Or, sorry, not free. Yeah, more or less fire at. Because the last thing you want, like, say you don't have a... This is one strength that most people don't realize about Watson, is she allows people to know you're in a place, which is very important later in the game, for sure. But, like, imagine they don't have a Watson, right? Imagine right here they have a Pathfinder or something instead. They don't have fences. You can't aggressively peek as much without a Watson because you don't have shield meds, or any damage you take you have to waste shield meds on, right? You can't just generate it from a pylon. So mostly if you're playing without a Watson, you're not playing as aggressively in terms of peeking. So what that means is any team could easily roll up on you thinking that the area that you're in is free and no one is there. Because again, most teams run Watson. So they don't see any fences, they think that area is free, and then all of a sudden they forced an awkward fight that they probably didn't want to force, but they ended up doing so because they had no idea you were there. That happens a lot more than you might think in competitive when a team's not running Watson. So that is one small strength of Watson that's actually really big. But this is like the one thing I would change. I mean, it's not a big thing, but it's always putting fences where, as long as whatever area you want to hold, put fences showing that, just that you're there. That's all.
That's what I heard.
I want to hear more. I want to hear their like their macro goals. I want to see what
There's a
their
wrap right here. A wrap right.
Okay. Let's force.
what their game plan is.
Force up. Force up. There is a team right here. I'm gonna back up.
Yeah, I'm trying to launch that.
Watch that top team or anyone to like not take.
Yes, Mousebridge it is.
Yeah.
Careful. Dome is looking at us. Dome is looking at us.
Well, I'm gonna stop you right there, Ace. Well, I guess if you're talking competitively, then like sure. I agree with you. I think it would be awesome to have another aggro legend. You won't see them probably competitively unless they have a massive team benefit. I did not beat Doom actually, Proggy. I will probably do that maybe tomorrow. Definitely not tonight's stream, because actually I don't know. Fuck. I don't know. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. That's all I can tell you. I'm sorry. Do you think it's gonna be broken if they added Evo Shield from dropship? I think they should do that. I think Evo Shield should be taken out of the game in the loot table, but it should be put on everybody by default. I think it would be a lot more. I don't like the fact that Evo is just on the ground. I definitely think it should just be on everybody by default, and then you have to make the active choice whether or not you want to drop yours.
They're fighting hard right here.
I want to hear. They're not really talking
there.
much about their macro here, so I'm curious
They're
how to
fighting
play this
another
out.
team, I think. They're just getting.
here.
Which is
shots
fine.
down
It's
behind.
totally fine if they make it work.
TP over here.
But I want to see how it works. You know.
They're gonna fight.
Here, dome right here. Dome right here.
Right now?
No, they're
They're
right
down.
there. Here,
Evo.
turns package.
In
You
the
can
dome.
dome. You can dome it. You both go through and dome it. We have 30 seconds. I would do it as, yeah. Go.
I'm
You
going
can
through it
maybe.
instantly. I'm going through it instantly as soon as you pop it when it drops. How long till it drops?
Pop it
How long?
at 10. Go now. Go
Alright.
now.
Gun.
Alright,
Watch this
going.
portal. Watch the portal.
Dome
Going
it.
again.
Dome it.
The portal on it.
That's a
Right
good.
here.
That's a very safe
Great
play.
dip.
Don't die. Yeah, don't die. to
Very
the top.
big wiener play to secure the package. Good. This is good stuff right here.
Yeah, it's at the back.
Purple.
Boys, we need to hurry.
Kind of a
Fuck,
shit package,
not
but
TP.
yeah,
we can
it's
take
been
this
on TP
TP.
for this.
I don't know.
No, I want
Which
to
way you
get
wanna
all
go?
the way behind. All the way behind. If we can get all the way behind there, we're literally golden for the rest of the game. Dead ass.
It's true,
Like, look,
but good
that
luck.
spot right there, it's 200 meters, but it's like the perfect spot to be at. And I don't
No
think
portal,
anybody's going for it. I have
no
an ult
mobility
myself,
is
so
going to
we
be
get it
very
back.
fucking hard for them to
30.
do this.
So 60.
I don't have an ulti stuff.
You don't have an ult?
I have one. I'm
Oh,
hoping one.
okay, never mind. They're
I can
getting another
double
portal.
ult,
They're
so
getting another
I'm
portal. This is good.
first go.
This is NA, yes,
Yeah,
correct.
I would run
This
a
is the second place team.
Because if we can get as far
Alright,
into the back,
73.
There's a
Alright,
team
here.
back there.
Here's mine. In the crate.
See that ping? Team far back left, crates. Near rock.
We just need to run as far
Their
as we
decision
can,
making is
as
solid
far
here.
as we
This is
can
what they
to
should
get
do.
in- to get-
Go on
But
where? Like those
do
back
they actually end
routes?
up doing
Yes,
it? Let's
the
see.
back rocks, like far back.
We have to go
It's
right then,
open.
right?
Dead ass open, yes. We literally need to run,
Get ready.
run
200 meters. We need to like get 70
your
meters.
push on. Yeah.
I have
We need to go
portal.
left.
They're shooting kids. They're shooting kids.
Go.
Kids are rotating into it right now. Right
Gonna
here.
go or not?
Ulti.
So this is actually what TSM screwed up a little bit in this game. Is that they're actually like calculating. This is good. They're actually calculating the portal distance, which is what TSM. If they had done that a little bit in the first game, it would have gone a little bit better, more than likely. Obviously, again, not criticizing TSM, saying they suck. They got to be better because obviously they won the fucking tournament again. But I mean, it doesn't mean they play always perfectly, right?
Just go, just go, just go, just go, just go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
We're
but I
doing
think
it
Spursing is
anyway.
the same legend using every
There's a
team.
team
They
rotating
don't come
in
in
there.
stand
There's
No,
first.
they're
Take
dead,
it,
they're
go.
dead on the rock. Go, 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 go. We need to get as close as possible.
Come back here.
Ask me again, Hypo, when the game is over, because I can
Alright, you're in
go
open,
into
wait,
about that, but I do
no.
definitely want to get into the actual game.
Near the truck. Where do you want to
A
go?
little bit open, out in the open, but they have
Go through,
Gibraltar,
go
so
through,
they
go
can
through, go through.
get
We
through
have to
with
go
this.
through.
They just have to
Get
make sure
dome
they have
here.
a dome.
There's a team coming. You're hot. Team on me.
Dome it, dome it, dome it, dome it, dome it, dome it,
He's
dome
low.
it.
He's low.
It's TSM.
What low? What low? On me.
What dead, what dead?
Get the thirst. Nice. It's not
Thirst
Get to
TSM.
the back, get to the back, get to the back, get to the back. Just leave it, get to the back. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
Someone went over your path, like solo.
Yeah. We're good, we're good.
Fences up there. Fences
They actually
up
ended
top.
up getting this. This
It's
is
okay,
fucking
just
huge.
watch our backside. Just
So-
watch our back.
Before we continue, a couple definitely discrepancies you see versus like the TSM VOD we just watched. And I'm gonna go through them real quick before we get into the rest of it. Like, obviously, I mean, at the end goal, they achieved their end goal, which is rotating here, right? That's good. Can't say anything necessarily bad about that. They got the spot they wanted, and that's all that really matters. But at the same time, it's always serves to like help to watch, to think about like things that they could have done potentially a little bit better. But I do want to point out some differences immediately in what you saw in TSM versus what you see in this team. Obviously, again, if you guys don't know, this team plays second, so they obviously did very well. They are very good players. I have a lot of respect for them.
I mean, get dome here.
through.
There's a team coming. You're hot. Team, huh?
So immediately right here, I saw a bit of hesitation on the portal, or at least the hesitation on them taking the portal, rather. And that allowed whoever this path was. It seems like he's solo, so in the long run, it doesn't really matter. I assumed when I first saw him that he was a team, and he was just kind of behind his team. But if this was a full team, this would have been a big problem for them, probably. But there was a bit of hesitation on taking the portal immediately.
TP's back.
Near the truck. Where do you want to go?
Okay.
That
Go
you
through,
want
go
to
through,
go.
Metro. Go through. We have to go
See,
through.
look how long it
Get
takes for
dome
them
here.
to actually
There's
get
a team coming.
through the
You're hot.
portal.
Team on me.
That's like a solid 8 seconds it took for them to actually come through the portal. So that right there, when you're doing a rotation like this, especially with Gibraltar, it has to be a lot faster, 100%. Because Gibraltar needs to be there to shield the portal almost immediately, because of, again, those crucial seconds where a team takes the spot in front of you. Again, this might be a solo Pathfinder, so for all I know, at the end of the day, it didn't matter. They achieved their spot anyway, but it doesn't hurt to see what could have been done better, right?
Dome it.
He's low. He's low.
TSM.
What?
There's also one other thing I
What?
want to point out here. It's not a big thing by any means. Turns, I
mean,
love you. It's
What
not a
dead,
big
what
thing.
dead?
But this is one thing that you start to. This is
third.
one thing that you'll notice that I didn't see TSM do once, but I am immediately seeing it
Nice.
here. So right now, I believe it's Pride that calls to just fucking go behind back here, And then, but you see turns stop to thirst this one guy, which isn't a bad play necessarily in this particular instance. It's not a bad play at all. But, you know, it's one of those things where, like, well, what if it fucked him over, right? What if he happened to get picked? But that's obviously dealing with variables that you don't see. But the whole difference, and the reason I'm even pointing this out, is the difference in team dynamic with, like, TSM versus SF here. SF makes a call, turns didn't necessarily abide by it right away. If this was TSM and they made the call, they probably would have just dipped immediately, right? They wouldn't have.
Get to the back, get to the back, get to the back, get to the back. Just leave it, get to the back. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
Look how many times he calls, just leave it, get to the back, right? If this was a full team that went back here, all of a sudden Pride is leading the charge as Watson. Which is, like, fine because he has to get there, right? He can't be out in the open all that much. But Pride is leading the charge as Watson, and Turns is at least 5 seconds behind, right? So this is the only reason Turns not listening to that call kind of scares me. Because now, all of a sudden, his team's a little bit ahead of him. Pride effectively has white armor here. So this could be bad if this was a full team back here. So this is the only reason I'm bringing this up, because it's just those small things that, like, right now, sure, in this particular instance, it doesn't matter, right? They got their end goal, they got the position they wanted, but this kind of fundamental play right here could bite them in the ass in many different scenarios. If there was a team back here, Pride probably gets picked for free, potentially, if they're all looking at him. Obviously, they have Metro's bubble still and whatnot, but it's a very small thing. But it's small things like that, not listening to the call necessarily. Like, Turns probably could have just tossed a nade and then dipped back and been with his team a little bit closer, right? Every little fucking millisecond counts in rotations like this. So, it's just, like I said, it's a small thing, but it shows that potentially their leadership's a little bit different compared to TSM's.
Fences up there, fences up top.
It's okay, just watch our backside, just watch our backside. We're in prime
Again,
position.
end result is fine.
I need fences.
Yeah, I know.
Fence that first, I got this.
But it's the fundamental difference in play that could be a problem in the long run.
Give me flash, one.
Pride, watch the flank.
Watson can be an
I
ideal.
got the flank behind us.
I personally don't think it's ideal, but she
72
can.
Evo shield purple.
Reps is the macro decision caller.
Once this closes, I'm in nade. They're stuck in there.
Give me cracked, give me dead.
Nice.
Another crack.
Look for more kills.
They're burning.
Oh
They're dying.
God.
They're dying.
Cracked again, he's one.
Shoot the race, she's cracked.
Nice.
Team back here. Watson, right here. Watch the flank, Pride, watch the flank. We're good, we're up here, we're good.
We have to get in that house on the other
Hal
side.
is not the IGL, neither is Ace.
Give me
I can't come in the middle.
We don't have
Reps
to rush
is
anything.
the
We're going
official
with the zone.
IGL
We're
of
not risking
TSM.
anything. Every placement we can.
Also,
right here.
Frex is the
Keep
official
and
IGL
go.
of
I
NRG.
have 63%.
Blue right here on this vent, he's stuck.
They're
This team
moving.
just moved out. Their Gibby's gonna move in a little bit though. I shot you in the back. Alright, there's still that team right there.
Yeah, it's a free kill point.
Cool.
There's two backs, there's two.
He hasn't for a while.
Yeah.
Watch me.
Go for it.
Purple,
I'm coming.
purple. Wingman.
All right,
I
so
have a
they're in a
purple.
pretty god
Shooting at
spot.
someone back here.
To be
There's a
honest.
kid right here, Ray.
They're in a very
grabbing
god
this
spot
wing.
here.
I'm grabbing the purple.
30 seconds.
I have
You're
no
right,
control on me.
Turns really keeping the Eva over the R9. I mean, that's fine. Eva's
Sir,
good.
You can't
Yep,
loot
I'm bubbling,
that.
I'm bubbling,
Eva's
I'm
just
bubbling.
fine. I
No,
just
you
suck with
shouldn't
it
have
personally. I'd
I
rather
had to. I was
not.
getting beamed by this team and this team. I went to go grab the purple.
This bubble's not bad, but they definitely
we
need to
gotta-
make sure
Dude, we have no
they
bubble
leave.
for rotate. This is gonna be hard.
We get kill points. We
You
need to
just
focus
gotta
kill
back up.
points.
Yeah.
Back up and
Focus
just
on
watch
TP.
him go.
That's gonna-
He portaled. He's right here.
Portal's right here.
Portal's on there. On ping.
I don't either, as a fellow
Throwing a
Slav
thermite on it?
Zara.
Burning Evo, purple. Evo purple.
Burning
Come
Evo
back
purple
through.
too.
Taking it. Right here. He's cracked. He's down. He's down.
Oh,
Kill the
no.
race. Kill the race.
He's almost dead.
TP
Go,
back.
look zone.
Yep. Get ready to
Come up to
rotate in.
this. Come up to this.
This is a
Another
pretty
guy,
big
portal,
overextension.
portal,
You
yeah.
can go.
Pretty
Wait.
big
He's
overextension.
back,
Portal
he's in the
back.
back, he's in
He's
the back.
delaying. He's delaying.
But this is
Come
also
to
very
me, come to
good.
me,
So now what? So I didn't realize they were playing for this. I thought they were gonna play back here. This is very good. They basically eliminate any team that's behind them. Now they have the zone basically to their backs. They just have to watch. Oh, you can't see it from my camera, but they have to watch over here in this area and make sure there's no.
Come to me. Come to me.
I'm paying.
No, sorry, Coach. He just
I got
stuck
another
like her.
behind me.
Lol.
I'm looking.
There's one more. I'm here.
He's weak. He's weak.
Turns.
Dead.
Did Turns run? Wait,
Dude,
he could hit the arc, or did he?
Is this your ult?
We
Is this your ult?
can't. No, we're not near you. We're not near you. You need to come back to us.
I
Come back
can't.
to us.
I'm stunned. This is in the next circle.
Are you safe?
There's a team right here.
Yeah.
There's a team right here. Do you have
We need to get to him. We need to get to turn.
When you get it, dome. When you get it, how long?
I do. I have it. I have
You
it.
dome here.
go.
Dome this. We're in.
Metro, hurry up.
Dome's up. Path has a G7.
There's a team. I don't know if that's a full team or not. Be careful with that.
Their fences.
I put my ult
Their
up.
fences are done.
We're gonna be in the open.
Our
position,
immediate
I guess.
threat is this team right here.
I don't know about this
This team
dome.
is peeking.
I'm gonna be honest.
Path almost cracked.
Honest.
20 HP on the shield. Purple. I'm watching here.
I have to worry about these guys
I'm
and
up.
Bandits.
Broken up top.
I have no shields. I have no cells. Do you have cells?
Yeah, here.
Drop, man.
Drop 4, drop 5. I only have
They're
3 left.
red Evo behind us.
We need to watch this team right here.
We have to watch this too. We have to watch both.
Yeah. They're shooting our ult on top of the roof. I have no.
I'm bubbling.
I'm multi selling.
I don't agree with this bubble either.
There's cells on the ground.
Grabbing one.
This is the worst threat. They have to take our spot. This team might.
They have no bubble now for these teams coming in. This bubble's gonna drop as soon as teams start moving in. I don't agree with either of the bubbles. That could have gotten them fucking killed. I get that they're like nervous and they just want to play for placements, but the problem is, so usually when you bubble when the circle moves, by the time your bubble ends, most teams that are fighting are probably gonna die, and you've gotten a couple extra placement points, and you're probably a little bit extra safe. But I don't see the point of this bubble. If no team, so most teams that are smart, right? If they see an opening on your team and they see your bubble drop, they will push you or they will like do whatever they can to kill you. Their bubble dropped initially, and you saw a lot of teams playing a little bit aggressive on them, but they stopped eventually, right? I don't agree with this bubble because I don't think any team was about to push on them. Even though this bubble's fine, gives them time to get her ult excel and they won't peek you from top. I don't think that team is gonna peek from top though. If they're I don't know in particular. I'm operating under what this team is saying. They're saying there's a full team back here. If there's a full team back here, this team is not peeking. They're not going to peek when this team pushes. So I'm operating under what SF knows. So the reason I don't think this bubble is good. Yeah, first bubble will definitely do any time. But the reason I don't think this bubble is good is because Circle's about to move. If they are right, if there is a team back here, there couldn't be. It's entirely possible that this team that was back here is this team. If there is a team back here, this bubble is bad. Personally. If there isn't, then they're fine. They're gonna be just fine. But the reason I think that Watson's fine with, like, they never like peaked overly hard necessarily. Like, I think they would have been fine.
Walking on the front.
Again, it all lies on, is there a team back here? That literally I'm just operating on what SF themselves know.
They're grenading path right here, peeking.
The first bubble definitely did not need to happen and could have gotten them killed.
Using a bat. Watch here.
That's a good call.
Looking behind. You need to, as soon as you get bubble, you need to use it. They're out, they're pushing out. One's cracked, Happy cracked, Happy won. Okay, so that in turn now makes it a good bubble, right? Again, I was operating under what they knew and what they were calling. A part of me assumed that the team that was behind that rock was in the building. But again, I'm operating under what they know. So that's just, if there was a team there, all of a sudden now, these guys, I mean, they have position and they don't have to move a lot, so they could have killed whatever team was back here. But it makes it a little bit risky. If a team was back there and they forced a fight right here on this pylon, the team that's in the house just overpeaks and kills them. Now, all of a sudden, they don't have a bubble to fight this, which is the biggest thing. Happy down.
I shot their all down.
We're chilling. Top four.
They're all dead.
At the end of the day, they're
On the
good
roof,
though.
on the roof.
We chill.
Shooting at us.
Almost cracked.
I'm batting.
Raid flash.
Bubble.
3 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. One.
I need syringes.
Here. I dropped you all of mine.
Okay.
Here, watch on me, crack.
Bubble.
I
want the bubble.
They're right here, crack. Flash.
We need to push roof.
Oh
We need to push
shit!
roof if we want to win
Oh
the game.
shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Sorry, that was unexpected. Cats are evil. This is why I'm team dog.
Bubble. I want the bubble.
They're right here, crack.
Okay.
Flash.
Right.
I'm batting.
Raid flash.
Right. Fuck.
3 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. One.
I need syringes.
Here.
I don't think you need to bubble this one either, but we'll
Here,
see how
watch
it
on me,
goes.
crack.
Bubble. I want the bubble.
Because they haven't peaked. It doesn't seem like they've
Right
peaked
here,
since
crack, flash.
since they
We need to
almost fucked up
We
Pride.
need to push roof if we want to win the game.
See now.
Are you ready? Go now.
I'm up. I'm on roof.
I'm on roof.
Path, he dropped. We got it. We got
I'm
roof.
Yeah,
on
Roach
heavy, I
was
need
big
heavy.
You
actually.
gotta
That's
watch both
huge.
sides.
Yep.
Dropped heavy. Come and watch it.
I'm surprised at how easy that was.
PK right here.
We got you.
Just
We need
ulted
us. Go back to the ult. Back to low.
I'm on no. Hit 50, purple.
Here's this
You
team
gotta
takes.
set up your port.
I actually didn't see this
end.
end game.
We got plenty of time.
Race on the roof to PK.
Stay alive.
There's two.
Bubble. Race one.
bubble yet.
They're gonna peek.
Watson, 85 flash.
They're
Bubble
hard
res.
fighting.
Bubble res.
Come on, kill bubble.
What's
Nice.
up?
We got
They're
them.
fighting on the roof.
I'm going for 3P in a second. Peek. I'm on. There's full team up top. Jib's on.
I need heavy. I have 0
I already
heavy.
dropped heavy. Did you not pick
I'm
it up?
dropping 20.
No, I
I have
used
like
it.
nothing in the bank. I have nothing in the bank. I
Alright,
dropped.
I got light if you need it. I got light if you need it.
I don't need it.
I need a med kit. I need a med kit.
I don't have any-
Here, take my med. Take my med.
Very chaotic.
Kill him ult.
Very
I can ult
chaotic.
them
I
off
don't
roof.
even know if I'm gonna have time. Too risky.
There's two on roof. I hit both of them.
This is a very
I'm
interesting
not
late
gonna give you
game.
up there.
In the matter of this entire circle phase, I think all 4 different teams at some point actually held that roof.
Yes. You need to survive. We need to ape this team up top and fuck them.
I'm portaling. So
Crack them hard up top.
I'm pushing up top.
Wraith on me, weak as
Ned.
fuck.
Interesting portal.
Watson, flash on me. I'm down. Watson's right there.
They're all weak.
I like what his plan is with the portal, but we'll see how it works.
They're just port spamming.
Wraith in zone, last one. That's all
I
I
don't
got.
have
He's right here.
second. We got second, boys. Let's go.
That's a good game. I mean, that's still a good game. That's a good game.
I didn't even have bullets in my gun.
All right.
Bro, I had literally nothing, bro. At the end of the game, I might have.
I
like,
see what he was
20
going
heavy.
with, but with that portal, I think he wanted to be on the outside and then come in with the last 2 teams fighting. But I think he messed up right before the last time he went in. He kind of just sat there. I think he tried to reload his Eva to get it ready, but then he realized he spent a little too much time, and then he took basically an extra tick where he didn't need to. But overall, a really good fucking game from them. I mean, I know I said a lot in terms of what they should and shouldn't have done, but overall, an actual very good game. I mean, they ended up pulling out the second place, which this early on, very first game, you can't really ask for better than that. You know, win is good and whatnot, but let's talk about some things though, for sure.
Hey, take my. I got light if you need it.
Jib's on.
Because this is definitely a vast difference from what I just watched with TSM, for example. And again, keep in mind, these guys got second. They are a good team, for sure. I am not discounting them at all. There are certainly some... their endgame seems very chaotic. He didn't pop the sword portal soon enough. He definitely didn't get the full distance on the portal. So that's one small thing. But that's certainly part of it. Them playing on this box has been
We
weird.
got plenty of time.
Wraith on the roof to PK.
Stay alive.
Wraith one.
Hit 50.
So for me right
You
here...
gotta set up your port.
So I know, so this is a very common thing of IGLs, right? And I know because I was in this position as well. For a time, I also IGL'd as Watson. And it's seems like Pride has some very good calls here. Absolutely. Like I think in terms of microing his team, he's doing very well. But one thing right here, he gets kind of picked, peeking the roof as a Watson, which is a little monka shake. Unless you have a bubble, that's good. But like if you don't have a bubble, again, that's a little bit monka shake. Him like peeking the roof right here and getting picked was definitely could have probably been avoided. I agree with the call to like try to take the roof. I think that's a solid call, and it's definitely a solid play. But I think one of the problems is he's the one doing it. It would have been better even with Metro or Turns doing it. Watson is the worst character to wide peek or first peek any angle if you're wanting Watson, Gibby, and Wraith. So I think him getting picked here actually cost them a lot. It cost them a lot of resources to get him back up. They couldn't use the dome aggressively. It cost them a lot, but they did recover, which is good. But for sure, I think Turns should have been the one to peek this roof 100%. But Pride, the reason I was talking about like me also IGLing as Watson is because I used to do the same thing actually, where I'd have the play in mind, I'd know what I'd want to do, but I can't reel myself back, and I'm the first one that does it, which you shouldn't be doing as a Watson. And that's why that led to Pride getting picked almost immediately. And it did cost them a lot of resources. It cost them a bubble, which they potentially could have used to take the roof instead of being down here. Because this is like a really awkward spot, and I'm sure they felt that too. This is a really awkward spot. But overall, they did a very good job still. Wasn't perfect, but they pulled out a second place, and you can't really ask for much more than that. That's still a really fucking solid first game.
I'm going
First
back on the
place,
roof.
and they had this amount of kills. Very solid, very solid game.
Wraith one.
There's two.
But there are some things that are fundamentally a little bit
They're
off.
gonna
That's all.
pick. They're gonna pick.
Which I think,
85 flash.
despite how well you do, I don't think you should
Bubble.
ignore those,
Nice.
because that's what separates
We
the
got
second
on
place
the
from the
roof,
first place,
Fight on
right?
the roof.
I'm going for 3P in a second.
Peek.
I'm on. There's a full team up top. Jib's on.
That was, see, like right there, right? Turns peaks and does 108 damage to the Gibby, and then Metro follows up. Like that right there would have actually been like a really solid first pick or first peak, right? That's exactly what I'm talking about. If Turns had the ability to peek first, especially if they had a Gibby bubble, that probably plays a lot differently. Because he can actually queue out, whereas Pride is just kind of fucked up there. But either way, like I said, very good, very solid first game. They netted themselves a lot of points.
I already dropped heavy.
The portal was a
I'm
little
dropping
bit
20.
early too, but
Nothing in
he
the
also
bank. I have
started
nothing in the
early.
bank. I
I
dropped.
got light if you need it.
Hi Athena, how are you?
I don't.
Oh,
We need the 8.
Okay, we got.
Like 20 heavy.
Yeah, that's a very solid first game. Very good rotations. Their game plan was there basically throughout. But again, there are some. It is just interesting to watch them versus watching TSM. But keep in mind, this team is only together for what you said, Demonic. You said 2 months, 1 to 2 months. So this team's chemistry is going to be off a lot more than TSM, because TSM's been playing for every fucking tournament together, right? So given their chemistry, I mean, they pulled out a second place in this entire tournament, and in 1 to 2 months of being together, that's really fucking good.
And
That's really fucking good.
don't give you.
You said your
So,
team,
SF
I looked
is
back and I
dropping-
saw the
they
team
placed
so
second
far away from
in
me, I
the
was like,
tournament.
oh, fuck.
They're dropping Fragment West, right? They're running a Gibraltar instead of a Pathfinder. TSM, who won the tournament, is dropping Fragment East. TSM is playing Pathfinder. So
But it ended up
the
working out.
TSM,
Because
just by virtue of
ran into
existing
another team.
in Fragment
They got
East
caught
and
super
grabbing
hard.
beacons,
Team-
is
the
helping
team
SF
far
out a
above us,
lot.
I'm still gonna lane mark.
If that makes sense.
Where's TSM?
If you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I don't know.
TSM is right there.
Nobody
SF
on
basically is playing around
Looking?
TSM.
No, you're
They're
good.
reading
We're
TSM
fine,
and
we're fine, we're good.
they're using TSM as their Pathfinder beacon,
Um,
so to speak. Turns does lose
not
though.
looking.
Too light.
No, I'm
I love
good,
Turns
no.
too.
Dead
I know
eye.
Turns is probably gonna watch this
Another
because him
Evo?
and I are boys and we've been past teammates. But Turns definitely plays a different wraith than most other wraiths, if I'm being completely honest, and that's not a bad thing at all. Obviously, it worked out. The motherfucker made second, better than any tournament I've been in.
R3 for now in the Evo.
3.
Wait, is Pride also on controller? I know Metro is. I didn't know Pride was too.
I can give.
So again, the big difference here, the big difference between, again, TSM, and I'm going to keep drawing parallels because I think it's very interesting that they both landed next to each other. And they both placed first and second. TSM is already, it's probably about almost a minute that TSM is already gone here. They're already moving on. So, very, very interesting.
I have 12 with 2 bats.
But again, because they're playing, that's not a fault for Turns' team. They're playing Gibraltar, which means they don't have to play position as much. Gibraltar allows you to not have to do that. So, it is very interesting. It's almost like we're watching complete polar opposites, yet they placed first and second. Yeah, no, exactly, 4.
Hit a bolt. Really bad.
I want to get rid of this Evo shield, bro. Deadass. I want this gone. I don't want.
Yeah, Eva's fine. I don't know why people hate on it so much. It's like, it's a really good gun. The reason most people don't use it is because it's just fucking weird.
Do you want this Evo shield, Metro?
But in terms of damage output, the gun smacks.
It
It does very well.
No, but I can run it. Just be careful.
Right, PvP?
I'm just gonna keep it and use it.
Oh yeah,
You
dude.
just
Fragment
need to
East
go.
is like
And I have
hands
to be
down
careful because
one
I
of,
have
if
to
not
get
the
drilled.
best spot on the map right now.
One shot.
Like it's loot
We see a scout,
density.
I'll grab a
Like
scout.
obviously, like you take a look at like sorting, right? Sorting has crazy loot, but the problem with sorting is to get all that crazy loot, you have to move a lot further than Fragment East. Fragment East's loot density versus the loot that you actually get is fucking stacked. The loot density is very high, and the loot is also very good. And you're also in the middle of the map. So, I think Fragment East is... You also have a beacon too, and if you don't have the beacon on the diner, you have the beacon out in unnamed area. So, in terms of drop spots, Fragment East is probably the best drop in the game. And TSM gets it for free. Good on them, because I know I know TSM was nervous about this tournament because they were struggling with a drop spot. Good on them to basically claim the best spot in the fucking game right now.
Go and just give it to me.
Come to the
No,
right.
it is crazy.
really
I mean,
fast.
but that's the thing though. That's what's crazy PvP though, is when you are one of these top teams, is you command that respect, right? If you are, I don't know, fucking, I don't know, name any nameless team that that hasn't like set a big name for themselves. Say, for example, me. Say I made a team. And for the last month, I've been dropping Fragment East. It's been relatively free. That doesn't mean that every team is going to respect that because, like, who am I, right? Versus any other team. You know, I have okay tournament placings. I'm nothing crazy. But when you're a team like TSM, nobody wants to challenge them on drop because why the fuck would you throw your tournament away like that when you don't have to, right? It definitely surprises me that nobody contested Fragment West. Not saying like these guys are bad by any means, but in terms of the long overarching view of the entire scene, these guys haven't made as much of a name for themselves as some of the other teams. But they certainly have now. So good on them. But they might not command the same amount of respect. They definitely don't command the same amount of respect as, say, TSM.
Oh,
right?
here's a blue. Thank God.
So this is, I believe, the dome circle, the one that ends in this little cavern down here. Let's find out.
Yes, I might have taken dome.
Team up
Or
top.
you. Close. On me. You need to get on this side. Hurry up.
Nading them. It's my nade. They're right here. Set up.
Come through because he
take a
thirsty
hard
coming
shot.
right below him.
Lagging hard and I'm not
I
there.
think you got
Right,
knocked.
right,
Are you talking about the game that we won?
No, I'm trying to fence it. I'm fencing it.
I beamed one. They're hard holding right here.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
am skipping. This is.
Yeah.
Knock
Don't-
when I'm down to push. Other than that, no.
24 blue. They're double blue. Just don't fall because of lag. Literally can.
Yeah.
They do it. You know, someone needs to be
Well,
watching
sometimes
it,
last one alive is not. The lag doesn't. Just because the server lags
I'm
doesn't
putting
mean it's
my ult
because
beside-
of respawn or EA. There's a lot of factors out of their control on that. Unfortunately.
Keep cognizant.
A lot of
the
it
two
depends on
fences
the
underneath.
provider
Shoot
as
them.
well.
Yep. We gotta move.
Like, server and network engineering
Character
for video
should get
games
out of
is very
time.
fucking difficult. It's not a very simple answer.
Metro, you can peek the stairs.
I'm gonna peek this, so I think it might be safer. Maybe he's cracked blue. Someone just res and sorting. Right here,
No, they
on
didn't
that
do
leaf
Ruby.
one.
Yeah, pass right in.
He's like crouched over here. Give me some
Give me
low.
50 blue. He's right down the staircase.
In the middle.
We're not doing
Blue.
Alright, I'm gonna-
anything risky this game. We're getting good placement again. We're gonna feel good about it.
That is a good. That is a
Then we need to
good.
move. Like we need to get into like
Good thing to keep in mind,
Thanks,
turns.
taken.
like
Very good.
if we can get, you know that bridge right there, the little
Yeah.
like cliff thing. That's what we need.
Hold the corner.
like second
So
best.
you wanna go over there and rotate it?
Yeah. Give me a second. Let me heal.
There's a team back there. There's a team back there.
No. On ping. Literally
Alright.
where you can sit.
Okay. Staircases.
Yeah. So we take that house at the edge. Let's
Alright,
go now.
Tournament.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
Run through these buildings. I need a bolt, like desperately. Like even with no bolts, almost useless.
Yeah.
Or if I need a Pika. Energy.
Oh,
Ping
bolt. Level two.
Someone's got res that way.
Okay, res
That's
done.
far behind us. Just fuck him.
Yeah, let's go.
I have ult again. I have no ult excel.
Yeah, I have 4 batteries. There's energy.
I definitely like this play to
heavy
get
ammo.
deeper into
I
the circle.
I want to go grab
I think it's a lot better than
No, don't-
hiding
Careful,
somewhere,
careful,
chilling on
careful.
that.
It's got
Team up
ping.
here.
Chilling on it. So again, they don't have path, right? They don't have path, so they don't necessarily know where the circle's going. But I think they pretty much do. I think this first circle was, and they've mentioned it. This first circle is always very indicative that it's going to be a dome ending, or rather, the west side of dome choke ending.
In about inside.
So we shall
You
see.
come to me. I can.
I was surprised to see that they held that route for so long.
No, I can't. They're hard looking at me.
But there's no reason.
Even like be there.
I see what their point is. They are a Jibby team. There's no reason to
Read the
enforce really big
can try.
placements and really
do it
big,
with,
or really big
Solar Fide.
positioning rather, because they can get away with it.
Oh my god. It's just like the rank,
Leave
man.
both doors open. What?
Fucking
Oh,
lag.
no, it's not-
It's starting to tilt me.
Watch the left one.
I'm doing well, Tierman. How are you?
You just gotta play safe. Everyone else is lagging too. It's good.
You mean everybody else is lagging too?
It's not just us. It can't be.
We're running like fucking hot dog shit.
But if we were saying every time Snipes
Can
on
we
TSM,
play
you
on
wanted to
roof?
push them.
Maybe.
Just seriously.
We don't want
Didn't
to
work
stay
out. If that's the
inside here.
case. You shut a
Like
stream off
turtle
mid
back.
tourney. Interesting. I definitely don't want to VOD review
Play on
that.
roof a little bit. Okay.
Somebody was saying I should VOD review or like look at their side, but if there's ever like
You
Swap
should
me,
give-
the person or player
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give.
in
give
question
them the perk.
was like
Yeah.
not
Turn.
feeling it or like upset,
Wait, why did
I don't
you-
ever want to VOD review that without their permission, because
You gotta.
I feel like that's just like bad mannered.
Need one.
Whoa, 4 angly.
Yeah, they are.
Funny you should ask. It's
Bro,
because some
I'm
of the
done.
servers are
They're
really
teaming
shit.
now. They're gonna be behind us soon.
Yeah. That might be the team that res, so they might be free KP. I.
They land in world events.
Crack the wall, crack the wall.
It's
He's
not
evil
a
blue.
it's not a LAN client. Last one. Not like it's not like a just straight up LAN 0-0 ping for everybody. No.
I'm lagging super hard. I'm
It's just
checking
that
down
everybody
low.
usually gets their own connection, from what I understand.
don't
Like
see
2
anything in there?
A's. Rather, everyone gets their own.
Oh,
Like the
there.
server, the game that it's
They're
on
all
is its
like
own
far.
Gold.
server. It's not
It's
shared
that
as
one
server.
that
But I could be
ends
wrong
right
about
there.
that too.
Choke. Yeah, it's in the choke.
Yeah,
I don't
it's in
really
the
know.
choke.
But it's not
Are they up
a
here?
true
They're not peeking.
LAN.
The's fence.
I don't think
fence.
so.
I don't think any BR
try-
really
You know,
is. I
with
could
the
be wrong
trucks
again.
right here, can we try and get there?
We should try to get on this
Like
roof.
a
No one's
TP?
speaking.
Team behind us. Team behind us. Team behind us.
Yeah.
All right, so I got 2 minutes here,
Yeah, they're in
think-
tunnel. They're in tunnel.
and they have conflicting
they're dropping
ideas.
down right
So
here,
they
right
put
here.
those out here.
Listen. Nobody's peeking up here. We can break these fences and go up there. Unless they're hiding in the corner.
Right here.
We go up there and we can.
So
I'm
this is
ready.
definitely risky. Obviously, he says no one's speaking, right? They could push this, and if they get into a scruff, that's where problems will exist, because the team down here might push up, the team over here, that's wherever they are, it might come up here. I definitely agree. This would be the spot to go for if it's open. But again, it seems like there's a lot of variables kind of like riding on that. We'll see how it plays out though.
Ready.
Yeah, Turns
I'm
could definitely be
moving.
playing low
I'm going.
closer. Turns plays a very
Team
interesting
behind us,
breed compared to most people.
I went top mid.
He doesn't play as aggro as most rates. He's a good rate, but he plays it a very different way.
Break the fence.
He plays almost like a support rate.
Dead?
There we go.
I have no shield.
There's a zip line going to dome.
We need to be careful. Like this is.
Team rotating back
There's
up.
already a team here.
We can
We
chill
have to set
here.
up fences.
All right, so they
Yeah,
got
we
this.
don't
This is
sell
a good
here.
I
spot.
have no ult. I have no ult.
So right here, if you're in this position, you're taking the spot like this. Right here, All you fucking care about is one person should be honed on this team to make sure they're not taking the zip or pushing you. One person should be making sure they're over here, constantly watching this area, because they did say that there was a team back here. So you have to now that you moved further into the circle, you have to make sure there's the team that was behind you doesn't pinch you by any means, or doesn't put you in a really fucking weird spot. And then the other guy should be probably scouting a future rotation or just getting information on every team around you, more so to speak, so you can figure out where the hell to go after that.
Right. There's a team behind us too. That's what I was worried about.
Yeah, people are gonna probably want to get on the roof. They're gonna, so we gotta watch.
Wait, PvP, did you play in this tournament at all?
I have 83 extra.
Wasn't this qualifier was like top 6 or something like that?
This team is like really aggressive and trying to peek me out.
Well,
all the
this
time,
qualifier into the finals,
Yeah.
rather. But yeah. The ALGS quals for
Alright, do you
Texas
still have a
was
ton of
definitely
heavy?
top 10.
I have
I
171.
think this one was top 6.
I have 83 in a spit. Make up a little bit.
40.
Right here, in front of me. Guy right here too. There's like 2 teams here fighting. Path one.
Dead.
Nice. Try to get the thirst.
Gold on the other path. That kid's cracked.
Big picks, big picks.
Back up.
Yeah. Watch your surroundings. Watch it. Don't tunnel.
I couldn't get the.
Where's this?
Zip. Heard zip. Maybe
did,
below
too.
us. Inside.
Probably below us.
See if you can get the. I don't know if we can get
Yeah,
the-
Shred Boy,
Right here.
G-Duffin's a very tough guy to
Gold
replace
Gold
on
on
the team.
Pathy. Gold on Pathy.
Not saying Android can't fill it, but
Keep hearing his zip.
G-Duffin's
underneath
just
us, it's underneath.
Yeah, we gotta
G-Duffin's
kill
a
it.
one-of-a-kind player.
There's one.
I don't
got
have
one.
one.
One of the
didn't
best
get
in the
my-
game, hands
I got
down.
one,
So
though.
he's
Fine.
definitely tough shoes
Make
to
sure
fill.
we don't get flanked.
And he's a tough
Yes,
role
our
to fill in the
biggest
game
thing is
too.
we need to watch
or
our
in a
back
team.
and not get flanked.
He's dropping on that kid. He might get my thirst.
Careful, you're still getting shot from here.
You got my thirst.
Should.
He's on right here. 43 purple. 43 purple on the Wraith inside. Up here.
Cracked Wraith,
shooting
cracked
down
that
here.
Wraith.
Parents kind of going wacky with this anvil though.
JBL.
Jeff one of the best in the game. His
Moving.
aim is fucking crazy. He has a pretty shit computer to begin with.
Right here.
On top
bubbled
of
right here.
he is
Still
a seasoned
moving.
BR
They're walking
player.
the
You
roof.
understand?
They're
He
about
just
to be up
has
here.
good
Can we
game sense
push
in
them?
general.
Push up. Yeah,
Let the dude
don't
push
let him
across.
up
Let the
there.
dude push across.
But he's the better
know
your
where to
aim,
spot, I'm
the
staying
more
here.
you can do
Right
in the
here,
game.
right here.
Yeah, they're
His
coming
aim
in.
is definitely
53 blue.
very good.
53 blue. You wanna don't push this?
I'm here. I'm coming. We
Once
gave
we're-
up our spot. Careful.
I cracked on 150,
big
150 here.
Don't push.
Push.
Yes.
Dome's up.
They're healing.
That's a really good dome.
Pathy and Dome. Pathy dead.
On me. What's dead?
Right behind you.
Runner. Nice.
That was such a good dome.
I'm resing. Fuck it. No,
Domes like that can be so fucking close to being really good and like really bad. They tread a really fucking fine line. That was a really good dome because if he threw it too far, then the team that's down low can use the dome to their advantage, right? If he doesn't throw it far enough, then it doesn't have as much of an impact. He threw it almost at like the perfect time right there. Or the perfect...
don't even risk it.
He threw it at almost like
me.
the perfect... Hold on, I'm gonna go back to like 5
Yes.
Dome's up.
Healing.
Like, this right here makes it like awkward enough that like if they climb up, they're really fucking exposed. They don't have a lot of room to move. Like I said, if this was any further up, then they could just peek like the little crack that's in here. They could play around it. It's not ideal for them still, but any further and it could backfire. Any like further back here, and all of a sudden you give this team a lot of room to work with. But that was like that's just really good fucking dome placement right there. That shit won them the fight hard, really hard. Yeah, controller versus controller. That was a very good fucking dome.
Pathy and Dome. Dead.
Because now for this team to challenge, they have to climb up, right? If they concede and just hold the low ground, turns this team literally just lines up along the fucking dome line and just peaks as to their heart's potential and will. But if this team has to challenge the dome, and they have a really fucking awkward place to challenge it. That's a really well placed fucking
Pathy
dome.
dead.
On me.
Really
What's dead?
Right behind you.
Runner. Nice.
She's dead.
Res.
I got res.
I'm resing. Fuck it. No, don't even risk it as fast as possible. We're gonna shot.
Oh no.
Do we need to move? I am.
You have
Go
Porter
back
now.
to our spot. Go back to our spot.
I can't worry about you. I'm about to die myself.
Alright, yeah. They're pushing. Wraith, blue. She just got blue.
Third party
Where am I at?
is a little unfortunate.
No, they're not. They're on me. They're fisting.
I do think he could have portaled and immediately queued instead of just queuing away. But that's also one of those things that's like kind of hindsight a little bit, not necessarily, but kind of a little bit. I think him just queuing away and healing is like the safer play, but I do think he could have ported probably and then queued away. But again, no way to actually fully know that without it actually happening.
Annoying.
There's a guy, Pathy right here.
I don't disagree with them
It's only
taking
two.
that
It's only
fight
two to your right.
by any means.
Are you sure?
They got hit.
just saw a saucer and
party
water.
though, but you have to expect it at this point.
We have to be super careful.
Hey, do you have light? I just got caught.
We have no.
The reason why it's like they kind of have to take that fight is because when you look at a circle like this, you have to look at every single team that, like, you have to look at the most congested parts of the circle and think to yourself, what exactly is where exactly is every other team around me? How are they playing and whatnot, etc. This being a southern circle, most of it access through this choke. I mean, you could obviously go around, but most of it access through this choke. The problem is this entire area is very, very congested. So it's a very like damned if you do, damned if you don't take a fight here. Them taking that fight was questionable technically in the first place because of that third party, because there are so many teams here. But at the same time, if you take this position and you don't fight any team around you, you're probably just gonna die on the rotation, just given how many fucking teams are actually here. So I don't disagree with the thought process of them actually fighting. I think that call was just fine.
Nice.
Especially because they won
150,
relatively
150,
cleanly.
150 here.
Let's look at this again, though.
Push.
Let's see if Metro had a chance of doing this fight without dying. So he throws a dome. He's still
Healing.
take. There it is. He didn't pop the bat. That's a very big one.
Pathy and
Let's see how
dome.
much
Pathy and
health
dome.
he
Pathy dead. Pathy dead.
On me, on me.
So he's half health now,
Watch that.
and then he gets R9 down. I definitely think he survives if he pops that bat. I mean, this is for sure hindsight what I'm about to say, but popping a bat is what, 2.5 seconds, maybe, in a Gibby bubble. Like, there's no reason. So again, now this is hindsight because what I'm about to say is like you can't know that he wouldn't do anything.
I
Right?
cracked on 150,
He saw an opening.
150 here.
Don't push.
He saw an
Push,
opening
push.
where he thought he could take it. Right here.
Dome's up.
He thought he could take a big opening, but it wasn't necessarily needed. So if you are let's take a look at this example right here in this fight. So again, all these guys aren't dumb. They know that there's a lot of people around this area. Again, that was a very good fucking dome. This dome is perfect. Pushing this fight, they have to know that there's gonna be a lot of people around them. And when there's a lot of people around you and you're at risk of getting third party, the best thing you can do for you and your team is to keep your health up, no matter fucking what. Because you can win the fight, but that doesn't matter if you guys come out dead, missing 1 or 2, or all of you, obviously. So, for what he actually didn't end up so he didn't pop the bat. What he didn't get out of not popping the bat was not worth it. In hindsight, again. But when you have two teammates that are, again, taking an aggressive position in the dome, which they are, Pride is up here, Turns is up here, ready to peek, and you are the only one that's cracked, effectively, you take this battery no matter what. So let's see when he cancels it. He canceled it. I think he canceled it because of this Watson right here, where he saw maybe one of them climbing up, which I get, but he didn't really need to. I think at this point he needs to trust his team to actually, the two guys that are playing a forward position within your dome to take care of the person that's pushing your dome. I understand why he canceled it. You don't always want to take the fucking full heal and then watch your team die. So I totally get it. But in hindsight, like I said, him not healing when there's so many teams around you have to make sure, or you have to rather realize that you're gonna get third-partied at some point when you take a fight like this, especially in a circle like this. So keeping your health up is of the utmost importance. If you are forcing a fight like this, especially. So yeah, him not only not healing, but I 100% agree with you, PvP. Not only did he not pop the battery, he took, yeah, a forward position in front of turns for some reason. That I don't quite get. So him going down could have 100% been avoided. Because he seems to die in the latter half of Resulta's spray, too.
Patty and dome, Patty and dome, Patty dead, Patty dead!
On me, on me! Wow.
This is where he starts to get sprayed down a little bit. He starts to miss a little bit.
Dead.
And the Resulta, on the second half of the spray, downs him. If he had that full armor, he probably doesn't go down here. So, a bit of a misplay from Metro, and ultimately, in a game like this, if one of you goes down this late, you're probably not getting too far.
Monitor. Nice!
So, bit of a misplay from Metro.
I'm resing. Fuck it.
So,
No,
this is also... Now, let's not talk about hindsight. Let's talk about what actually happened. So, he got downed. We got both of them here. A little bit of miscommunication, obviously. Not miscommunication, but like rather like... One of them needed to just be like, yo, make sure we're good, right? Like, there's no reason for Pride, unless Pride had gold bag, and I don't know this. There's no reason for Pride to call this res aggressively if Turns is already on it. We're like a second deep into the res, and he's still calling I got rezzed. Okay? Now, if Turns allowed Pride to res, Turns, realistically, in a fight like this, the guy who has the higher health should be rezzing, because the guy with lower health, if you're already in Jibby Dome, you should be working to get your health up. And while you're working to get your health up, you use your eyes and look around, see if anyone's pushing. If Turns allowed Pride to actually res, Pride made the right call. Pride should have went for the res here. But however, even though Pride, obviously he was like sitting there, it's the heat of the moment. He's sitting there waiting for Turns to get off so he can actually take the res. If they are getting pushed, one of them should have been able to scout it. This doesn't matter who's rezzing and who's not. One of them should have scouted it. And then Turns could have made a portal play back to where their gen is and made it a lot safer. So, combination of Metro not full healing and Metro taking a very aggressive position when he didn't need to. And this big res miscommunication. Again, Pride... Most teams typically will allow the person who has more health. Like, as soon as the fight is done, you immediately takes a fucking quarter of a millisecond to look down, look at your team's health. Most teams understand whoever has the higher health usually rezzes, so the other guy can get his health back while he's keeping an open eye for anyone out. So this is, again, a bit of a misplay here. Turns should not have went for this, because he also has the portal too, right? Even if the other team pushes, Turns gets the battery off. Or I guess he doesn't have battery. Maybe he pops a cell or two, and then he portals back towards their gen, and all is well in bona fide esports land. But
don't even risk it. As fast as possible. We're gonna shot.
There is a little bit of...
Do we need a move? I am.
You have portal.
That's the problem with Wraith rezzing, though. I get Turns' notion of don't risk it fast as possible, but the thing is, Wraith buys you extra time if you need it by portaling you out. You know, you're not forced to res right then and there. So that is a pretty big misplay in terms of this, but
Back to our spot, go back to our spot.
it's
I
not
can't worry about you. I'm about to die myself.
Again, it could have been avoided to begin with.
Blue. She just got blue.
But again, I mean, if they're only a month or two
They're
in
on
playing
that.
together,
No,
can't grill these guys hard, especially because they've just placed second. So
Oh, it's so annoying.
again, though,
Patty right
it doesn't
here.
hurt to look at what you can.
It's only
do
two. It's
better
only
no
two
matter
to your
what.
right.
Are you sure?
But this is one of those
saw.
situations where the person who has less health, if you are in like a team situation like this, the person who has less health typically fucking Darwin. The way to avoid this kind of miscommunication is to basically go whoever has the less health, so Turns in this case, set that precedent that the person with the less health immediately calls for the other person to res. This is something me and my team actually struggled with a lot back when we played, even back on Kings Canyon with our initial roster, is learning how to reset even when we have a guy down. And it's all comms. It is all comms. One person just needs to be like, yo, go for the fucking res. You know, I got everything else, right? But that needs to happen instantly, and that comes with time. That comes with time and understanding your teammates and how they play.
Saucer and Watson.
We have to be super careful.
Hey, do you have light? I just got caught.
We have no Gibby shield.
I can't. I literally have 2 clips
Welcome
of
back,
301. We killed 2 teams and I didn't get the loot. We kind of have to kill this team, and then we can win.
Okay, okay.
I don't have light.
There's
I love
two.
it.
only
Kill
have
this
no
team
light.
and then we can
No
win.
light for you.
Yeah, so kill or loot or something. I don't know what these guys are doing.
They were armor swapping
There's
when I
it.
checked. It's a Gibby. It's a whole team. Whole team.
Yeah, man, they're just getting all that loot for free now.
Alright, well, again, I have 1 gun. Let's back up. I don't know. On me, I'm at my back, I'm back. Right here, dude.
Whole team.
Just run then, I don't know. I'm dead, I guess.
Just run. That's the team from inside.
I'm just dead, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Play your
I
life,
can't
play
do
your life.
anything.
I know.
They aren't respecting the
They're
third
trying to
parties
get
enough
placement points.
by any means. Like they are not like that. There's no reason they should have even went back to those bodies. That's a full team of 3 from what they think. That's a full team of 3 taking all of that loot. It sucks. It feels bad, but the fact that they disengaged and gave that team plenty of time to just start taking all that fucking loot, swapping to better armors, whatever you want. They completely just forgot about this team that's up here, right? Like, what are they gonna realistically do there? They're 2-man. They didn't have any big intro damage.
Just run then, that's 1.
Like right here, right where they decide, hey, fuck it, let's go back to get some of the loot. Like, that's just not gonna happen. When you lose a teammate, you have to just fucking change the way you gear everything and look towards the rest of what you have to do. At this point, Metro's gone. They ain't getting him back. They're not getting any of that loot. Sauce's team just got all that shit for free. You have to just look for your next move, and you have to make it fast because you don't have a lot of time. Them going back to fight. This team over here that's in Donut, I think it's Kevin's team, Wonderful's team. They know what teams are fighting up here. They know that they're pushing this because they know that one of them is already dead. So it's just a lot of, I feel like there was a lot of tilt, not so much thought put into this entire play in general.
Kill or loot or something. I don't know what these guys are doing.
They were armor swapping
There's
when I
it.
checked. It's a Gibby. It's a whole team.
Yeah,
whole
like
team.
it's a whole team. Why are we even challenging this, right? You got to cut your losses. And I know that sucks sometimes, but you got to cut your losses and just go. Yeah, exactly. It is Kevin. I mean, Kevin and being a dick is very synonymous with one another.
Whole team.
Saw the zone and I asked my team, yo, you want a grief? Nice. I mean, you did it.
Watch one. Alright, well, again.
But like, what is, like, realistically, what are Turns and Pride trying to do? Do they really think they're going to 2v3 with how many teams are on this side of the circle? Like, it's just not going to happen. You have to cut your losses and run. Not going to happen.
I have 1 gun. Let's back up. I don't know.
Now, it would be a lot different if, for example, they already had downed one of them, right? And they kind of go back and then they want to, they turn around and then they want to go back. They decided, hey, let's try to take the fight to them, right? It's a lot different then. But Sauce's team got a very clean pick on Metro. I don't think any damage was returned to them. So this is just a lost fight to begin with. They should have been looking forward and what they could do. I mean, them as a duo on this rotation, they're basically fucking dead. Like, there's just not much they're going to be doing here. So it's, I don't know. They should have just cut their losses and run and try to rat somewhere. But even then, they're basically fucking dead here. It's a tough situation all around. I definitely don't think the play was to go back there, though. There's nothing they get from that.
I'm at my back. I'm back. Right here, dude.
Whole team.
Just run then. I don't know. I'm dead, I guess.
Just run.
It is best to 3 people kills, Demonic, for sure.
That's the team from inside.
I'm just
But
dead. Yeah,
them
of
going
course.
back there
Play
is...
your life, play your life.
It would be better for them to just lay low and hope that teams in front of them are going to start fighting here and then the third party that. That's the best case scenario. Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, you have to understand, Demonic Wonderfuls is a massive griefer. Pretty sure that's the only
Actually,
I'm just trying to get placement points.
Team Liquid signs. But again, I mean, this game is already basically fucked as soon as they lose Metro, which they could have avoided.
9.
9 to 5.
All right, 9th and 5 is actually not a bad game. Going second place, I forget how many kills they had in the first game. Going second place with however many kills they had, and then a 9th and 5 isn't bad. That's 7 points. It could be a lot worse. So 7 points plus a second place with however many kills they had in the first game. That's a solid. Like, they're still in the running. This is still a solid game despite it ending pretty fucking sloppily. They're still good. They're in the running. It's all numbers, boys. If you want to get signed to an org for content creation or esports, you better have numbers. You better have numbers, or you better be really fucking good at the game. Which most people aren't. Hate to break it to you.
Drop right here. In your
I mean,
position.
all for like chase your dreams and whatnot, but like we gotta be realistic. Yeah. Okay, so this is. Let's take a look at this. So I did review TSM before this. I'm sorry. I apologize profusely for getting off on a massive tangent on all these other things. I could have finished this VOD review by now, but we're only halfway through. Fuck yeah. All right. We're gonna focus a little bit more on finishing the review. Anyways, but I do appreciate the questions and the dialogue. I just feel bad for the people that actually probably want to watch the review. Anyways, so I did review this game already. I reviewed TSM. This circle, like, really fucking weirdly actually pulls the survey. Most teams are not reading it this way. TSM got lucky as fuck, I'm gonna be completely honest. Most of the time, TSM puts themselves in a position where they actually are going to get the circle. This time, they definitely got a little bit lucky, but they still made it work for the most part. But anyways, this circle does end survey camp. If you were just listening to the comms of SF here, they were thinking it's gonna end somewhere around here, so they were gonna take a spot, but I'm curious to see where they actually go. Most teams are reading it, obviously, the center of the circle. Most teams are reading it to either end at the end of the tunnel here. There's a couple circles that end here at this compound. It could end in like this little skyhook choke, and it could end at the end of this skyhook tunnel, and then like here. But most teams are reading it to be like somewhere. Basically, I know this seems like, well, no shit, fucking forehead, but most teams are generally reading it to end in this area. It does not.
Yeah, because everybody's gonna be bottom, and we need to rotate up top so we have less teams to fight. The only problem is there's like at least 5 teams rotating for that spot, so it has to be that.
I'm gonna hit these pills really quickly.
Unless it hard pulls.
Run around. You just have-
Wait, what's going on?
Just, like, up
There's
here.
a team up there.
Yeah, just go far right. Go far right. Just keep going far right and wrap all the way
Going
around.
around
Yeah.
the place. I have
They're
40
fighting.
I know they got to
Right.
endgame a lot. They definitely played really fucking well the whole tournament.
Push up and, like, almost no
Again,
back.
a lot of things they
Like,
can
over
clean
here
up,
somewhere.
small things here and there,
Longbow
but
shot.
I
I
mean,
don't know what
the
that
fact that, so I'm gonna do a quick little recap. The fact that I've already watched enough so far, and I've already picked apart a decent amount of things that probably could be done better, but they still managed to get second, proves that this team has a lot of potential. Right, so I am personally excited because my boy Turns is on this team to see where this team goes. I'm very happy for him getting second. Metro and Pride are also homies. I don't know them as well, but I was definitely very happy to see some homies do a lot better. Alright, so Turns' team,
Hurry,
much to
yeah,
their
hold on.
chagrin, don't realize that this is actually
Good, huh?
Wait, 2 teams.
a very good spot for them to be. Let's see where they actually end
I
up
don't
going.
think so.
Hit once.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab a
There's
Gatorade.
one down here.
I'm a little dehydrated.
Yep, Watson. It's
I should
Watson.
grab a water.
That's,
He's in
they
open
have
shoot,
2
TP
golds.
back.
I don't have any water
Hey, TP, somewhere.
available right now, though.
In here, TP in there.
We might want to kill them for their loot.
Hey,
This
two
is an
bolts
ISO
around.
fight unless there's a team in the fucking... Right here. 2, 2,
That
2.
is exactly it, Rook.
Yep, so there's 2 teams.
The more people
to
you
the
can
park.
influence
They just
with
went to
your
the park.
following,
Flank
the
them.
more value that has
No,
to
the
orgs
Watson's
and
split
sponsors.
in there. That's their port.
It's the unfortunate way of the
Fortress
world, but at the same time,
Yeah, it's doing this. We can siege them.
It's hard to sign
We
somebody who has
have-
5 viewers. What are they
I
gonna
have
bring
a-
you? You know?
They have
Well,
purple and 2 golds. They have purple
Yeah,
and
purple and 2 golds. That's like
You
our
have to be
endgame. If
realistic
we
with
can
these
get
things.
this,
It's a
this is
business at the end of the
good
day.
endgame for us. I'll have 2 golds on you guys.
Wraith is peeking right here.
I think it's worth it. What do you think?
So yeah, like I said, much to like Turns' team, none of the teams in the survey right now realize that they are actually in a good spot. This circle, I guarantee you ask any of these teams that are in survey right now, what do you think of this circle? Most of them are gonna be like, I mean, it's the spot that we got, right? But this circle does end up pulling here, and it's actually really fucking good for them. I don't remember where Turns' team ended on this one.
I don't think so.
I do know
Unless
Turn-
you get
I do know
a
TSM was like
1-1,
5th
but they're
or
gonna be
4th or
full
something like
reset
that.
by the time we push.
How do I say sexy?
Please choke PK.
I wouldn't
Guys
even
get
use
a
that
knock.
word.
Happy's out here. Our
synonymous
Wraith
with
is
my
out
name.
there.
That's a different team.
I don't have any
That's a different
secrets,
team.
dude. I wake up out of, I
That's
roll out of
TSM.
bed and I roll out of bed and I turn the stream on.
Why
To be
am I
honest,
falling off?
Is it?
grow a beard. That's a good one. Grow a beard.
They're in that building.
Hey, blue.
We're like
I'm
getting stuck.
putting my ult down in here.
Yeah, basically everything that Blameable Emu just said, 100% true.
Dude, I can't even fucking...
If you are an org and you're basing
Have a
your
scout? You could
Yeah. I've been
basing
Double
your
even, though.
players
Double even, maybe.
on
Yeah,
just
it's up to
org
you.
winnings,
If we're staying
or
here.
team win-
If
or
we're not,
We're staying
game
here more than
earnings.
likely.
you
bring
have
it
to
back.
probably gonna turn out bad for you guys. Because that's not sustainable in esports.
I'm
Or
just
sorry,
worried about
well,
bringing it
in
back.
general, not really so much in esports because you never know what can happen, but definitely not in BR esports.
I only have
No.
2 cells, 1...
This is a big play.
Yeah, I have
I
three
like this.
cells.
I like seeing how people are playing with Evo, by the way. I think it's definitely smart.
Another team behind us, up high, purple.
There's no reason
twice.
not to try to level up in Evo here.
We're in a bad spot. Get in the building.
Yeah, get inside.
I can't grow
Inside,
one.
inside.
How old are you? I was not able to
Open
grow a
the door
beard
for
until I
me.
was like
Open the door.
It's
25.
open. It's already open.
Straight
It's
up.
already open.
I was
Open the
not.
door. I dropped the Evo. I dropped the Evo. I
So,
controlled it.
one thing I'm going to talk about right here that I like that they're taking a rooftop approach here. Anytime you can have a rooftop with your back relatively clear is very solid, and you absolutely should. So I like the idea of them taking the rooftop there. Obviously, they're being met with this team here, so at the moment they can't do it. There's nothing wrong with just skirting back and just playing the house. The same thing I said about TSM was any of these houses in survey, as long as you're like holding the doors, as long as you're holding any of the angles, no team is actually going to push you here, because if they do, they're just going to die to every other team that's here. Same as like any other place. It's like that whole interesting duality where like, hey, you're playing a low ground house, which objectively would normally suck, but because every other team can also protect you from the teams that are pushing you, they're not bad houses at all. You're not going to get a major tactical advantage in these houses, but you will survive more than most people. Fuck. Girlfriend's alarm.
Nice.
It could be this one that ends right here too. The one that ended there.
Notice how TSM did the same thing. None of them are like, nobody expected it to fucking end here. This is actually like a pretty radical pull on the fact that it comes out here. Pretty fucking big. I hope that they aren't moving. They don't have, so this is the strength of a Jibby team, is you don't really have to move in this situation. Even if the circle pulls like way south of their position, because this is south. Up is south in this regard. You don't ever really have to move early because you are Gibraltar and you can actually play the circle late. So, again, curious to see how they play this one.
Right.
Do you know how the zone is actually determined? Great question. Is it an algorithm with near infinite combinations, or are they always preset, or the first few are preset? Right, so all of the circles are preset to a degree. So they all end... So and none of what I'm about to say is official information. This is just information that most of the pro scene has gathered over the year that we've played this game. Is that circles are based on like a group, and each group lasts somewhere in between a week to 2 weeks. So 1 week you might get all like thermal circles, for example, or circles on whatever side of the map, and then the next week all of a sudden you won't see any of those circles that you just saw. But most of the end circles are preset in terms of, like, everyone knows, if you just expose yourself to enough scrims and late game ranked games, you will see a lot of fucking circles. And then the question is, which one is it like going to be, and how is it like going to vary a little bit, right? Like there are definitely parts of the map where like I can safely say I've never seen a circle there. Because they all are basically pinpointed to a certain area, and then they vary to a degree. That's how we figured out how the circles work. Now, one thing that you'll notice that's interesting, and I wanted to say it, but Mac beat me to it in the TSM VOD review that I did a couple hours ago, was about like 3 or 4 games in, Mac said, dude, he's like, these circles that we're seeing in this series are all from like a month ago. So that's something that's like very interesting to take into account, because like I said, every like week or so the circles change. So if you're playing circles that you played like a month ago, that's very important information to know in terms of how to read the next circles going forward. Morvin Matt, thank you for the 4 months, 3 in a row total, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. It means a lot. But I hope that answers it a little bit. The only way to really... There's no secret to reading circles other than just fucking seeing all of them and understanding how they work. But the only thing I can tell you is that there does seem to be somewhere in between a week to 2 weeks of a flip. Where, like I said, you might one day play 12 hours and you see all the same circles. And then all of a sudden, none of those circles you've seen will be back for like a month. So they all seem to be like in groups. But nothing is truly random. You always have to take that into account. Algorithms always work on something that is pseudo-random. And there are certainly, like, a lot of the zones are curated to a degree that they are hand-picked. So a lot of the circles that we deem as players as shit circles, like ones that are like, there's a shit ton of like landmass that's not even fucking playable in the circle. Like, we deem that as shit circles, right? But a lot of those are intentional because the game wants you to force people to fight. That is the purpose of those really, really bad circles. Because I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's say every single circle in the game had 100% playable area and it was always like a very open circle. That would kind of get boring after a while, right? As much as shit circles suck to deal with, that would get boring after a while. And the whole point, again, like I said, for these shit circles is to force teams to fight. Both from the esports standpoint and from just to make the game fun for people, pubs and ranked. Because all those shit circles, when you come out, if you're in a good spot for those shit circles, and you start to frag out every other team there, like, that feels really fucking good. But that wouldn't happen if it was a very good circle, like one where a lot of teams can play, if that makes sense. I mean, not much to do here, really, or talk about, other than they just isolate what their immediate issues or immediate weaknesses are, which they basically are.
2, 3.
Always
4.
count the teams. This is very good on Pride's end.
We have 4 teams near us, basically.
Howard's on the roof.
I'm hearing something like here. That's where I'm hearing someone.
This is basically it. Like, fuck every other team. Just worry about the teams that are around you.
Up on this. That one, look right there.
No, I see that. Yeah.
Smile has maps.
Oh, look at the pole. Look at the pole. Are we almost in? We're not almost in.
No, we have to get in the blue thing. We have to play blue. We might need to kill behind in the corner to our left. Like that team.
That building?
Yes, they're literally stuck.
Then open. 47 gold.
How's rotating in them? They might push them right here.
They have TP.
Yeah, they just TP'd into this building.
The path across from us has a purple.
Gold on the raise still.
I do agree with their call. Right now, if you can get that trailer, it's a solid. It's not the best
Nah, the truck's
spot.
not in. We have to play the blue van. We need to get in there.
I mean, it's not like the
Can we
best
get in there and
defensible
hold
spot,
them
but
out?
in this circle, it'll be
Come.
really good.
I'm getting in. Yeah, just go.
I'm dropping my scout. I'm dropping my scout.
Macho's going last. He's gonna get beamed.
Oh my fucking bolts, shit.
Damn, they actually just got this for free. That's pretty crazy to be honest. I'm surprised at how long it took them to rotate that somebody didn't already take this. That's really surprising.
So is our backside definitely clear? You gotta be careful.
So. I'm almost certain.
So if you're in a spot like this is tough. The biggest thing you have to do when you're in a spot like this, when you're in the big, like, one of like very few buildings or like structures with cover, this late in the game, is you have to just, I said the same thing for when TSM was, for the TSM review, is you have to just not play aggro at all. Your biggest concern isn't killing any team. It's just fucking surviving. It's fighting off any team, just stalling. You know, you don't want to go. You don't ever want to leave this tractor to get super aggressive because you'll probably just die. You just any team that happens to try to push up on you or near you, just fight them off, and that's it. You don't get over aggressive. Keep your health up. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done. It's a really fucking awkward place to hold, but in terms of this circle, it is one of the best because everything else is just open real estate. So their game plan here should be to just survive. Just survive. It's definitely easier said than done. But we'll see how it goes.
Careful, you're getting shot from Aberrant though. You gotta watch here, because otherwise they're gonna destroy my ult, and I don't have an ult. Oh.
Turn, do you want to switch? Hold this door?
I killed.
That is a big one. Always be mindful of your Wattson ult and where it is, and sometimes it's not a bad idea to favor that angle more than anything, because it is certainly not in your best interest for this, in a trailer especially right here, it's not in your best interest to get this shit killed. He picked the best spot for it. You know, most people usually in these trailers, they'll put their ult like on this window, but you can't do that because the rest of the circle has a more of an angle than on this side. So it was good ult placement, but no ult in this trailer is secured. So you got to watch out a little bit. It's not a bad idea, especially for the Jibby with the arm shield, to try to kind of mitigate a lot of that pressure from the angle that it can get shot. But if your ult dies here, you're basically fucked. The one nice thing is, if you have Jibby though, you do have at least the dome shield to kind of turtle a little bit. Hopefully it turtles enough time. But if you're running path and you're in one of these, you're basically fucked.
I killed one.
Jibby makes it a lot more playable if you have a path.
They have purple back here.
They have to move in. This team has to move in.
They went
took
through.
portal again?
Portal.
Yeah. They're in with a ult. They're in with an ult.
I'm watching right here.
No, I don't think they put the ult up too early.
Here.
When you set up, you
Team
have to
sending
go
it.
into them.
Teams are
Otherwise,
sending it.
they risk getting nade spams.
We just chill.
We can get kill points and shit.
That's right here, flash.
I think there's a team on the
You gotta tuck the boner away, turns. Tuck the boner away. You don't want to get too horny here.
I can't tell. They're on the roof right here. Maybe bomb them.
Bombing it once circle.
They're rezzing. Yeah.
Yep.
You get too horny here, you die.
Is it gonna eat your ult?
They have Mastiff. That's Smile on the roof with Mastiff. We have wait, save it. We have zone.
Centers. Yeah. Keep everybody off us.
Yep. That's the call.
There's a team on this roof.
I can't put ult or fences in front of you. I can put them behind us though.
Alright, yeah, do it.
I'm at 162 light on 2 light guns. I'm gonna save it for a little bit.
There's a flat lane with some ammo right here.
I know, I might grab that really quickly just to get some shots. Alright, I'm dropping my R9 right here. I'm grabbing that.
Someone come play outside with me. Because I don't want this team rotating into us. You're gonna have to bubble, Metro.
Alright.
Interesting call.
Who's
Like,
playing outside?
maybe-
Me?
Yeah. Can
I
you
mean, I
play
respect
right
it.
there?
I would respect it. But
Like
interesting.
here, this is our game to win. We have center zone. Reps just went down. There's a team up
They
top.
portaled.
There's a
This is
barrel.
risky. Ooh, I'm getting anxiety watching this.
That's mine.
And this.
Where'd my light map
I actually
go?
don't know which team won this up
This
for now,
isn't safe
Right
from
there,
that
right there,
rock.
on peak.
to be honest.
Yep, got it.
Where do they portal?
162 light. There's a team up here.
I don't know. Careful, it turns.
That's fine.
We have to group. We have to group together.
Alright, you want me to ult back here? You want me to ult right here so they can't
All on
rush?
top of us. Just literally
Thank you,
all
that
on
was
top
really
of us.
All one is
They
closing.
TP behind us. Or up. They're above.
Malting. Ulting now.
Careful.
Yeah, reps definitely fucked up a little
Don't,
bit.
don't.
Rotating.
Call for it.
Both our doors.
Blue.
Both our doors are gone.
Jump.
Right outside.
I'm hitting people with fences on the left.
They're dead out there. I got an ult. I got a heal.
If it's just a race, I
Someone's
think.
rising.
Behind me.
Alright, I already kept thinking I can say about this.
Double's gone.
Getting beam.
Team-
I'm one.
team up
Watch
here.
me. Watch me.
Yep. You're good.
20 seconds.
I broke one in the back.
Don't do him as soon as you can. Don't push anything. It's too risky. I'm 1 HP. You're 1 HP too.
Right here.
Yep, I'm good.
Dome on cooldown every time.
Yep. 7 seconds.
They're weak behind us. They have a
They keep
goal.
shit- they keep
They have a
three
walking
peek.
ult or what?
It's a two-man.
Yeah, we keep getting
Dave,
free
I'm
feed.
walking on the
Unless they're
right.
fighting.
You
Are
want
they
me to
fighting
dome right
them?
here? You want me to dome?
We can fight them. We can
ult's
dome and
destroyed.
fight. You
Alright,
want
I'm
to dome and
doming,
fight the team?
I'm doming. Push this,
Go
push
dome.
it.
They're
Not
weak.
dead.
They're weak.
Nice.
One dead.
Nice.
Grab.
Man.
Careful.
Under.
Up top.
I'm going
Hit
inside.
41 perp.
Popping a bat.
Good dude.
There's another team right here.
They're burning up top.
I have no bats.
All dead. Last
They're
team.
one. They're low. They're shooting, all shooting at me.
One dead.
Crack one.
Alright, back up.
Alright.
Come down.
Right dead. Tap on me. One.
Play together. Me and you turn. We got this, baby.
Heal then. Watch.
I'm good. He's one. Come push him.
Don't push it.
Get the bat. One.
Let's fucking go.
Big win.
Suck my cock.
Go.
That's what we do, boys.
What?
Oh yeah, good shit, boys.
Good shit.
You are the apex
I'm trying to be
champion.
brand marketable here.
Dude,
I
I
don't know
rolled
about
up
that
on
one.
that team up top and literally just spammed like 250 damage of Eva on their
Alright.
backs and they didn't know what the fuck happened.
Good win. Obviously, winning is really good here, but definitely very messy.
I just trying to
Um,
trade damage for my life.
And again, just because they won doesn't
Fucking
mean
go.
there's not things we can't look at here to actually see what they could do better. But very messy from a couple standpoints. There's a lot of things I actually want to point out here. This is a bit of a case of where they basically won by virtue of just grabbing a good spot, which is very good. Sometimes that's all you need. But this definitely could be cleaned up a little bit more. Definitely could be cleaned up a little bit more. Let's talk about it.
Don't,
Alright, so Turns made all of the right calls, I think, here, saying every time he called it, saying just chill, because you could tell, I think Pride essentially was a little horny. I guess given what he exclaimed after they won the game, maybe he was a little bit horny. But
Rotating.
Call for it.
Both our doors.
for sure,
Jump.
like the play here, if you're playing a situation like this where you are the only building / structure whatever in, your goal is, like I said, to just chill. Just chill, let everybody basically kill themselves off.
Right outside.
This almost wasn't that
hitting people with fences on the
necessary,
left.
but I get the point of it. I think the point of it for Pride when he called it was to dome so like nobody pushes them, because you know no one really wants to push a bubble. Let's say you like really need to. I think that's why he wanted it, which not the worst idea, but there are a lot more glaring things here that I find.
They're dead up there. I got an ult.
Right, actually,
side.
just in with
don't
almost with everything
Rotating.
here. So
Both our doors. Both our doors.
eventually they
Jump,
reel
jump,
themselves
jump.
back. So that call, you know, at least the call was there.
Right
A
outside.
call was there. But right here, from here on until Turns comes back into the trailer, there's not really much being calmed here, except for like maybe a little bit of damage here and there. And this is a lot of what I talk about is the difference between the leadership between a team like TSM and like or Sentinels or any other versus any other team out there. Is yes, they won. Yeah, that's really fucking good. But what really hurt them, I think here, and well, not really hurt them, but because they won. But what really could be worked on here is just overall team play. They all did a good job by staying alive individually, right? But you can do that on your own. There's a lack of a game plan here necessarily in terms of like just holding the place, because like the original call was that Turns makes a couple times is like, yeah, we just need to chill, we just need to hold this, which is great. That's a fantastic call. I absolutely agree with that, but you see them like kind of pushing out and like kind of shooting at people. It's a little disjointed. There isn't necessarily a game plan. Like, you know, you don't really ever hear Turns, for example, he pushes out to fight a couple of these teams. You don't really ever hear Turns going, hey, we should push this really fast, like we should fucking fight this,
I'm hitting people with fences on the
or
left.
fight these guys, fight this. Like, it's kind of just like calling what's happening, but nobody calling what to do, right? And that's the biggest difference between a lot of teams. Again, just because they did win, which is awesome, but that doesn't mean we can't look at things they can do better. Because this endgame is kind of sloppy. They're winning by virtue of the fact that nobody got this trailer. Somehow, nobody had this trailer. So, them getting it was a very good call. because nobody was in it. But
Their dad's out there.
like right, like
I gotta ult. I gotta heal.
It's just a race, I
Someone's
think.
rezzing.
Behind me.
that's not the greatest call because he didn't ping or anything. Like it's hard to tell. Like he's switching back and forth. It's hard to tell where exactly what does behind me mean, right? There isn't any call like, hey, push this guy, hey, kill this guy, shoot this guy, or you know, nothing really in this little bit of a buffer of nothing happening. Things could have gone south in another game where they have a less.
Getting beamed. I'm one.
Oh, that guy almost actually probably should have killed Turns. But so right here where Turns takes a lot of damage, this is actually good right here. This is good. Because Turns is about to call, just play inside, just play like, just chill, just play inside. That's a good call. That's like an actual action call. And that's what I think they need a little bit more of when shit starts to hit the fan.
Watch me.
Yep, you're good.
See,
20
he's calling
seconds.
for help. He sees Pride leaving.
I broke one in the back. Push
Don't
one.
win. Yeah, dude.
You can tell Pride's horny, right? You can tell Pride's horny. Turns can tell as well. So Turns is making a good call in just saying, hey, just play inside, which is truthfully all they need to do. Let these teams kill each other. That's all you need to do. You don't have to worry about pushing them necessarily. Just let them kill each other.
Do them as soon as you can. Don't push anything.
This is where the action calls start to happen, which is good. But there was a solid buffer of like 15 seconds where they're all kind of peeking out at the same time, which Turns almost ate shit for it. Again, that's like those little areas is like where like there needs to always be something calm, like do this, do that, do this. You shouldn't ever be like kind of peeking just like daintfully, if that makes sense. Just kind of like lackadaisically peeking just because you want to without saying anything, or coming to like have like your team hold all of them peek. Like I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down here. There needs to always be a game plan. It needs to be calm so your entire team is on the same page, because right now they're kind of all, for a little bit up until this point, they were all kind of doing their own thing, and they got a little bit lucky that they didn't eat shit for it. Oh, fucking Darwin.
You're risky. I'm 1 HP. You're 1 HP too.
Right here.
Yep, I'm
It
good.
doesn't
I'm
end
good.
though.
Dome on cooldown every time.
Yep. 7 seconds.
I don't
They're weak behind
necessarily
us. They
agree with
have
that, but
they have a
Keep
goal.
shit.
it's
Keep
the
it
same
free
thing.
peek.
Ult or what?
It's a two-man.
Yeah, we keep
It's
getting
better to die
Unless they're
with
fighting.
your dome
Right
off
here.
and down.
You want me to
Or on
dome?
cooldown.
We can
off.
fight them. We
They're
can
ult
dome and
destroyed.
fight.
Alright,
Dome
I'm
and fight the
doming,
two
I'm
men.
doming. Push this,
Go
push
dome.
it.
Okay, so I like the fact that Turns made a call here. We dome and fight them, right? This is good. A little bit forcing the issue when it doesn't maybe need to be, but it's the fact that he called this is good. This is like, at least they have a game plan. Like I've been saying through all of my VOD reviews, a bad plan is better if everybody follows it than a good plan if nobody follows it, right? Like the good plan here is they took this trailer and they're playing the trailer, right? But if they're not all on the same page, then that can very easily fall apart, which you saw Turns, like I said, almost completely eating shit. I think this call to push this team is very ballsy, but again, as long as they're all on the same page, it's better. No, it's definitely, it's definitely not a smart fight. I would not make this call to push this fight, but what I'm seeing at least is the fact that they're actually doing it together, which is something I haven't seen them do up till now really in the late game. Their late game comms are very messy. Very messy. Again, even though they won this, it seems like they won this match more from the standpoint of they got a really good spot and everybody else killed each other around them, more so than they got a really good spot and played very well. I think this end game play here was very sloppy. It was a good way. It was good on them to get to this point, but their late game, like I said, is very, very sloppy.
They're weak. They're weak.
Nice.
One dead.
Nice.
Grab.
Down.
Careful.
Under.
Up top.
Yeah, they gave this team
Going
a
inside.
free
41
dome.
burp.
This is a good nade right here.
There's another team right here.
They're burning up top.
Because it makes them,
I
it
feel
forces
bad,
them
I
out
feel
of the
bad.
bubble. That's a good nade. But like, even this right here, right? Like, yeah, Turns is doing work right here, but like, and I'm only like directly referencing this because we watched TSM before this, so it is a very stark difference between the two in terms of late game. They're like, Turns climbing up here and fighting this is fine
so to speak, but he doesn't say any of this. He's putting out a lot of damage. He's putting out a ton of damage. He forced them out of the bubble. Everything Turns did here on an individual level is very good. But if Turns had been like, hey, I'm burning them, I forced them out of the bubble, climb up with me, if he like made that call, for example, all of a sudden, they probably just get fucking full wiped up here, right? He doesn't say any of this. He kind of just does what he wants to do. And again, they win the game.
They're low.
See, he only calls that they're low after he already took a lot of return damage, right? Imagine if he had thrown that nade, pushed them out of the bubble, and told his team, hey, they're pushed out of the bubble, climb up into the bubble, right? All of a sudden, that ends right there. Like, the entire game probably ends right there. It's a lot more clean.
They're shooting at me.
One dead.
Q is obviously also not necessary.
Back up.
Right.
Come down.
Reset, pass on me.
Play together. Me and you turn. We got this.
I'm gonna talk about that too right
Watch.
there.
Good.
It's just very messy. It's very messy.
Don't push it.
One.
I think I heard like maybe 6 different contradictions there in team calls, and nobody listened to anybody. This is so messy. Again, amazing that they won. Good on them. But you gotta look at what you can do better. And this endgame, this last like 10 seconds, so sloppy. And they could very easily eat shit for it because if they don't clean this up. You hear like I said, so right here, again, this could have ended right here if Turns had just calmed. I'm burning them, they're out of the bubble, come up to the bubble with me, okay?
They're low.
Doesn't do that, instead he Qs. So now, at this point, like, everyone's calming a shit ton of damage. I mean, I get it, right? Like, you're in a tournament, you know, lots of pressure, nerves flowing, all of that good stuff. But just, it's so hectic. Every single person is calling something differently, and nobody is listening to the other person, right? They could have very easily just died here. Let's listen.
Back up.
Pride is calling to back up. Meanwhile, Metro is yeeting himself over here into the corner of the circle behind the rock. Wow, I fucking hate you, actually. Pride is literally calling fall back. Metro's like, fuck that, I'm in.
Back up.
Right.
Come down.
He's still saying back up. And that's fine, Metro got the pick, so it worked. But again, we always gotta look at what we can do better.
Reset, pass on me.
Play together. Me
So they're saying play together. Okay, that's fine. That's a good call.
and you turn. We got this, baby.
Heal then. Watch.
Good. He's one. Come push up.
Don't push.
Don't push it. Let's
Still ends up
fucking
pushing.
go.
I mean, obviously, Pride saw that he's won there. He did a lot of damage. He saw that he's won. He pushes out. That's fine. But there was a lot of really, really sloppy plays there. Again, really good job on them winning and getting themselves to be in the position to win. But a really sloppy late game, which could hurt them in the long run. Just a lot of like fundamental things that they need to work on right there. Like I said, just because the team wins doesn't mean you can't always look at what you can do better. Very good job winning, but I think it would be wrong to just dismiss this like, oh, they won, so they're good, right? If they truly want to get better, they need to look at this. You got to look at even the victories and look at what you can do better within your own team comms and like and ideology. We'll watch this all back at normal speed, no pausing. Now that you see how I see it, we'll watch this back full since from when the circle closes.
Yep.
Also, Hal, big fucking congrats, homie, dude. That's you guys are fucking
All
wild.
back here. You mean all right here? So
Absolutely.
we
All
can
on top of us. Just literally all on top of us.
That's
All when it's
They
closing.
TP
just
behind
unheard
us.
of.
Or up. They're above.
Malting. Alting now.
Careful.
Yeah, we'll just let this play, so you can see basically now
don't.
with everything I said,
Rotating.
you can see how it plays
Both our
out
doors.
Blue.
Both our doors are gone.
from my point of view.
Right outside.
I'm hitting people with fences on the left.
Right, this is that period of not really any direction, no overall game plan, no calls.
It's just a race, I
Someone's
think.
rising.
Behind me,
Could
behind
be
me.
dangerous.
Double's gone.
Getting beamed. I'm
Team
one.
up.
Didn't
Watch
need to
me,
be there
watch
at
me,
all.
watch me.
Yep, you're good.
No
you're
calls that he was there.
20 seconds.
I broke one in the back.
Don't win as soon as you can. Don't push anything. It's too risky. I'm 1 HP. You're 1 HP too.
Right here.
Yep, I'm good, I'm good.
Dome on cooldown every time.
Yep. 7 seconds.
They're weak behind us. They have a
They keep,
goal.
they keep
Dave, I'm walking
creeping.
all through what?
It's a 2-man.
Yeah, we keep getting
I'm
creeping.
walking on the
Unless they're
left.
fighting.
You
Are
want
they
me to
fighting?
dome right here? You want me to dome?
We can fight and fight them.
They're
We can
both
dome and
destroyed.
fight. You want to
I'm
dome and fight
doming,
the
I'm
2 man?
doming. Push it, push it.
Not necessary. This fight is not
They're
necessary.
weak, they're weak.
Nice.
Almost gets them killed.
Grab.
Down.
Careful, careful.
Under.
Up top, up top.
I'm going
Hit
inside.
41 perp.
Popping a bat.
There's another team right here.
They're burning up top, burning up top.
Okay,
I have no
so
bad, I have no bad.
Turns did make that call, but he didn't tell his team to climb up with him, right? This could have been
They're
huge
one,
if they did it.
they're low. They're all shooting at me.
One dead.
One.
And then just complete everyone doing whatever they want to do.
Come down.
Reset. Pass on me. One.
Play together. Me and you turn. We got this, baby.
Heal then. Watch.
Good. He's one. Come push him.
Don't push it.
One.
Let's fucking go.
So again, congrats to them, they won.
Suck my cock.
Go.
Congrats to them, they won on that
What
one,
we do, boys.
which is obviously good.
good shit,
But
boys.
again, a
Good
very
shit.
that was more of them winning because of them just being in the circle or being in like the best spot in the game. But they could have, on like 4 separate occasions, they could have very easily fucking thrown that. Very sloppy. But a win is a win. But they got to keep looking forward because that's
So
For
what
sure.
is Unite?
that's rough.
The first,
When burning them should have all called all climb. I mean, if Turns is gonna go up there, so Turns through the fire. Turns knew that bouncing it off the top of the dome and then where that nade was gonna land. Turns knew that they were gonna be pushed out of the dome. That's why he pushed it himself. I don't think he necessarily. It doesn't mean he should have called that, but if he was gonna go up and peek like that, he should have probably made a call like that. That could have ended the fight right then and there. That's so big. All of a sudden, they have a really nice dome to work with, and they just peeked the shit out of that team and just fuck them. Because Turns did a lot of damage up to them up there. A lot of damage.
Kind of close.
But like I said, it's just disjointed. It was that end game was more so, to sum it up, basically, that end game was a lot of kind of like solo playing that happened to find openings and then it worked. You know? Again, and I have to make the stark like comparison because they are the team that's dropping with them. They are the team that won, and they are the team that's played longer together. But again, look back at any of the TSM VOD that I watched. Their end game is so fucking different. No matter what situation TSM was in, they always had a game plan, and they always followed that game plan to a T. It's just it's crazy how like complete, almost polar opposite that game. The late game was played by bona fide gamers. They're like kind of towards the end. So again, good on them for winning. Like obviously that's huge, but there is a lot hopefully that they take away to learn on that because that was a very sloppy win. Very sloppy win. Several times they should have died and not gotten out, but hey, they won, so it's good. I'm gonna fast forward. There's nothing like, there isn't that much interesting that goes on with Jibby early games because they spend as much time as they want looting. Again, TSM's early game was different because they play Path. They loot really fucking fast, faster than any other team probably. And they get the hell out as fast as they possibly can, right? That's a little bit more exciting to watch and criticize. With a Gibraltar team, you don't really need to do that. You can take all the fucking time you want to loot. I mean, the better position you get, the better off you are. But playing Gibraltar doesn't mean you necessarily need to have the best position.
Okay. I would like it. I have a PK
Which is
that
how
would be
most
great,
Jibby
and I have a
teams
purple
do
ball
it,
on
so
my right.
I'm just gonna fast forward
Keep
through
one
all
together,
this
I'll
because
take it R9,
I don't think these guys haven't been so very pressed to rotate, which is fine. Nothing wrong with
For a
that.
second.
They've been doing just okay with it.
I have it. You can have. Come into.
Second floor, at this building, right? No, have heavy.
When you're in,
I dropped it.
there's a heavy mag. Oh, you can take the purple ball. Take the purple ball. There's a heavy mag, second or third. It might be
Looting
third.
is also, they need to be a little bit
We
more.
need to go. We need to go.
I have no heavy mag.
They need to loot a little bit
Metro,
more
come
together
get
as
the
a
fucking
team.
loot.
Not like,
Obviously, I
again,
have
whenever I say that, I don't mean.
Dude, keep it-
Whenever I say that, I don't mean they
Fine,
should be
keep going.
walking together,
You can have
but
mine. I have a
drop things for each other.
Someone's flying in.
There's a lot of
Like,
debating
we're-
going on here. Just
taking
loot for
too
each
long.
other. Yes. At least they know they're taking too long. They definitely are taking a little too long. Wix tomorrow I'm gonna do Alliance and I'm gonna do Rogue's team, Dream Team.
This could be hard.
Alliance might be a little rough. They'll be the first team that I
So,
review that
TSM just killed.
don't have any
Hold
English
up,
comms.
On second group up with the
So it might be a little tough
keep
because
running
I'm very
forward
big
on
on like interviewing, criticizing comms, because I think comms and leadership
More
displayed
heavy.
through comms is what separates the men from the boys when it comes to Apex.
Got a blue ball.
I can drop 2 cells
So we'll
for
see.
something. I have 2 extra cells.
I'm originally from
Here.
Bosnia,
Yeah,
Brent,
take it.
but I
Yeah,
live in
two.
Pittsburgh.
Here.
I got the
I've lived in
Second
America
floor.
most of my life. I do know that, Quentin.
We need
Yes.
to go. We need to go. People are flying left side.
We're
Like
going
even
up.
like
it
even
could
this
be,
even this little pit stop at the corner, not necessary. You know, demonic, because I know you might be bringing this to your boys. I think you've been here like pretty much all of tonight, right, demonic? So you've seen Albert Lilly literally walked by many open or many closed bins. That motherfucker didn't even open them. That's how that's the difference between TSM and most teams, and getting the really strong positions. They are not phased by their lack of loot or whatever the loot situation is. Like obviously if they have shit loot, they might be less likely to take a fight. But the fact that I remember, I think in the very first game, Thermal, I really literally walked in between the 2 bins that are down here, completely closed. I'm gonna be honest, I would loot them just because I am a greedy fuck like that. I think they even had 2 whites. That's the kind of discipline that really separates TSM from any of the other teams. Is they don't give a fuck about loot. They care about position. They'll get the loot later, and again, not many teams play that way. So it
There might be
is
people in it.
11:20 in the
Team right
morning.
here.
Brent.
Yeah, what close
I
left?
just got.
I just got beamed.
Here.
I have an extra bat.
That quarter. So that's taken. What we wanted.
Yeah, team right here, shooting at the team that just shot at us. He's.
That's what I'm talking about. If you remember, if you've been here for a long time, and you remember me talking about the crucial 5 seconds is all you need. If you're on the wrong end of the 5 seconds of your rotation, all of a sudden things get fucked up. Now, I don't know how this plays out. Obviously, I just paused it right here. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. Look at this. Think about if they were here 5 to 10 seconds sooner, right? If they eluded just a little bit faster, all of a sudden they're ahead of this team. And they can just fuck this team over if they really want to. Now, this team's getting pushed back by the team that's in Harvester, which is probably TSM? I could be wrong about that. I forget. These games are a blur at this point. But these are those crucial 5 to 10 seconds I'm talking about in your first rotation that a lot of people take for granted. And this is why looting fast matters. And this is why when you see Hal, for example, running ahead of his team, this is why you see that. So you can see, so they can get past all of this awkward rotating, catching each other kind of bullshit. Most teams rotate at the same exact time. Also, my chat disconnected. This is why again, those crucial 5 to 10 seconds. Most teams rotate around the same time. So if you rotate ahead of all of those teams, you're fucking golden.
Broken. Shoot this path.
So now they have to deal with whatever this situation is because of them taking
might
just a
have
little
to
bit
play
longer.
church.
If they didn't even if they didn't go for this, if they didn't go for this down here, they get through this choke probably just fine.
Right.
We just have to watch out for this.
It was a couple games, right? It wasn't just one. I know what you're talking about, but it was a couple games. And that's honestly, and I
I mean,
talk
we're just
about,
gonna have to
I
fight
literally
them.
talk
We can't do
about
anything.
about why they do it, what it
Literally-
means for them doing it,
There's yeah.
and
they're already
don't
right.
try to emulate that because
So the
most
fence
people
is in
will
front.
fail trying to do what they do.
The drop.
But
no.
I definitely
Or
walked
go
through
for
like
it.
why
Super.
The spot sucks ass. It's
it
230
happens.
meters. I feel like it's worth it. Get that energy weapon.
Edge.
Yeah, that. Or we can get maybe Metro like a shield on our way through.
Yeah.
There's still all these bins that are looted right here.
This is a big investment.
Probably TSM.
I'm not gonna.
That's where we want to go, honestly.
Probably.
This is a big investment. We'll see how this plays out.
Behind me, I think. Full team. They went inside. They're running. They're scared.
Okay. They're playing edge for a reason.
Gold
you
backpack. You should. Where are you?
Backpack?
Metro?
Yeah, run underneath you, run underneath you, run underneath
It's hard to say how. Like I personally would not have made this play. I would have just kept going. But I mean, there definitely is a payoff, right? They get a Kraber, which is massive for early to mid game picks. I mean, late game too, obviously. They get a Kraber. They're in good standing. Obviously, a battery helps no matter what. Good armor. They actually got fucked on this. I mean, they got a gold bag, which is good, but they're rocking 2 blues and a white. That kind of really sucks. that they weren't able to get a better armor or even a better attachments. Like a purple sniper stock, really they got the shaft on this drop for sure. Gold bag is huge, but they definitely got the shaft on everything else. I don't know if it was technically worth it, but we'll see, I guess.
There's cells right there too.
All right, perfect. All right, this is the harvester ending down here. Yeah, down here. I believe TSM occupied the snake. Again, very interesting choice for them to go back. But again, they are a Gibraltar team. It doesn't matter as much. But I still wouldn't do it.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go in the choke. We're gonna get
like
pinned.
we can play outside here and take it late or
Agreed,
something
Shedboy.
like that.
I agree.
Yeah, but if we're trying to do what I'm saying and
Rank
get
reset
in
is
zone and
probably
everything,
1
like,
PM
we've got
Eastern.
to
Well, hello
fucking
there.
loot faster. Otherwise, we're never gonna be like in a prime position.
Yes, 100% agreed, Prime. Fried.
It took so long because I was looking for a heavy mag 4 floors. I tried cut
It's not
20
worth
seconds.
it. It's not worth it.
But
I'm with you,
I don't
Turns. I
remember
feel
thinking,
that, but it's
but
not
for
worth
once
it.
was, like, stacked
Your
and
position
everyone else-
is more important.
Because I tried to hit it, I don't know.
Your position is
It
more
might be the
important
one
than a
that
mag.
ends right
Yeah,
here.
you want to go through?
Might be something good this way.
The choke's gonna be like deadly. I feel like we died.
No,
in
I
the
think
choke.
which one? the
Yeah,
right
going
one?
back put them in a
Yeah,
really
this
weird
one-
spot.
I don't know.
But we're
I
gonna
think
fast forward a
if there's
bit.
people here,
There's
there's gonna be people here. We're gonna get like hard tanks coming in.
I mean, the only thing
That's
is train
such
might
a
be
fucking-
I mean, we can just fight train. Like we can fight in the tunnel. It's just gonna be hard.
That's
You
such
can
a
take this
sketchy
building right
rotation.
here and then third whoever's in this, because they're gonna get pinched from the team from Harvester.
Let's go. Let's go. If we're rotating, we have to rotate now.
Yep.
I like that call from Metro. I was about to say that.
We don't
When you're in this awkward,
Yeah.
if you're like in this awkward, like in between this terrible choke and the train yard chokes, like in the tunnel and stuff like that, it's usually your best bet is to just fucking go all the way around. I agree with Metro's
know.
call here.
Check. I just want to check and see if we can take it. If we can take it, it's worth.
You're right next to
It's
each other.
not
If
wrong.
we see something, we beam them. We're literally better.
Yeah, you guys go in front. Go in front.
I like it.
We
Turns
We
into
have to check
confidence.
ball. We have to check.
You're right
ball.
here, right here. in front of us.
Yeah,
White armor, one's white.
White? Oh
I
my
hit
god,
white.
we take these.
I
We
hit a
take
white.
these. We take these.
I'll see armor swapping. It's a possibility.
Throwing thermite grenade. Look out.
Careful, hard star on the ground.
You just have to bubble forward and we fight.
So this already right here is like, yikes. I'm gonna be honest. I like the fact that I like that they're trying to be aggressive on the white armor, but at this point, at this early in the game, if you haven't already gotten a pick, or if you haven't already killed the team, at this point I would say back the fuck up, because every team is horny to pinch on both ends of this tunnel. So I'd at least like back the fuck up until, and then maybe like to the stairs, and then maybe pray that the other team gets pinched or something. But holding this deep at this point is very scary. Because of any teams that are in Skyhook, Lava Fissure, Drill, any of that shit that could come this way. So, we'll see how they do it.
Wait, he
Evo
fucked up,
shield,
I think.
Evo shield.
I'm very forward.
Bubbling.
He's playing by himself. He's playing by himself. Push, push. He's won. He's won. Dead, dead,
Nice
dead.
goal.
Wave 50, blue.
We got this. We got this.
Alright, it's good. Now they took the tunnel.
Charge
This is
rifle.
good.
Another squad. Charge rifling.
Oh
We got
my
the third.
This is basically what they
God.
needed.
Far, that's far.
I'm surprised the other team.
Where is he?
I'm
Where is
curious
he?
why the other team
He's-
left.
He's up.
Maybe they just didn't want to.
TP
Maybe
on
they
the
didn't
bottom.
want to get
I'm just
pinched.
taking damage to 2 teams every time I pick.
But the fact that they got the tunnel now, so now the Watson needs to go behind and start fucking fencing the hell up. Not necessarily to slow another team, but just so you know that another team is coming. Because at this point, they could still get pinched.
Need to recharge my shields.
Watson's always meta. No, Andre. They have two. These guys are two controllers. The guy we're watching, mouse and keyboard.
Fucking no reason.
God, you fucking sent.
Actual cucked us.
Just now.
Well, the thing with that is, Metro, you gotta listen to the comms. I was telling you that he was by himself, so you just need to listen to that. He's got a white Evo. I'm putting my ult on. We're staying here. We're gonna push these kids and
Start
kill them.
fencing the back. Start fencing the back.
That should happen a lot
Rachel's
sooner.
queued. I hear them. They're close. Close. Watch the front. Watch the front. I'm gonna go fence the back really fast.
I know. I just. I
But
don't want to get
definitely a
too
good call
aggressive
either way.
in case
Oh,
something
like
happen.
no.
So
you-
now the only thing that sucks about this now is they are actively putting themselves in a bad spot later on, right? If there's a really dumb team that doesn't understand, like depending on how this circle goes, if they're really dumb, they don't understand like rotating. There could be a team that holds them out here at this end of the circle, much later on. Again, don't know if it happens, or I don't remember where it turns his team
you
ends
gotta
up
listen
here.
to the comm because he was not.
But them now they have to deal with the
Just
possibility of having
left and
to push
everything
out of
and
here
shit.
after the next circle.
The thing is,
And a lot of that will depend on where the next circle lands, right? If the next, and I don't remember exactly where it lands. If the next circle lands like somewhere out here, then you'll see this team that's in this area push out and rotate like they should, because that would be the smart move. But it all depends. It all depends.
Victor has to fucking, literally, he needs to bubble us, and we need to haul ass like around the corner. Fight these kids. We want their
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah, we could. They got
Vodka
hype,
review.
though.
I mean, I
They
did have some
enough
drinks.
spots if they
Didn't
don't
have
have
vodka, but thank
Yeah,
you. guys.
white, yeah.
Or a geese.
But the only way to get to them is zipping up.
Yeah, they were a little
Race had
slow on
blue,
fencing
Race had
for
blue.
sure. They should have fenced as soon as they peaked.
Yeah, we need to
Oof,
get the
this
I
should
got
be
portal
out.
past them. I don't know if that's
So,
open.
perfect. Thank you, Turns. So, if this were me, I would tempt this team to see what the hell they're doing. I would look if they are not budging at all, if they're not trying to rotate out at all, I would just go the fuck back out and around. I mean, it's still risky. You'll still run into teams here, potentially a team up here by the zip. That'd be a little bit of a weird spot because of like all the open area here. But this is one place that's just really rough to fight out of if you're forced to do so. Because right here where the circle closes, isn't like there's not really ample cover. They would have to TP to one end of like the cave, which is one thing they could do. You know, Turns could TP like back here, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're kind of ahead of this team, and then maybe they disengage. But there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts that can happen afterward. But it is a little rough. They don't have to commit to this, but we'll see how they play it out.
And we get here.
Let's go this way.
Now we could fight at leisure. I could
Do it a
queue.
bubble and check,
I could.
and then wait 30 seconds, and then.
Can you peek the corner? They're not looking. They're not looking. Peek the corner.
I peeked it twice and I get charged rightfully, sure.
I know. He's not. Now he's
Right
looking.
here, yeah.
He wasn't looking when I was calling it. They're both
I can
looking.
bubble
Maybe
and we
we
can
go.
get info. I can bubble and get info. We get that 30 seconds.
We can go around.
That's a good call
We
right
can
there,
go all
actually.
the way around.
Throwing a dome,
have
walking
to
out,
fire
seeing what's around, and then
We have to go now. 2 minutes.
I actually kind of like Metro's call right there. You throw the dome out, go into it, kind of peep everything that's going around. If you can't push it, just go back
Guess
around.
I'll have an extra H
I like
card,
that.
right?
That was a good idea
Yeah.
from Metro.
Yeah, it's fine.
They didn't need to
Hollow
like
and iron.
go hard on this rotation this early. They have time,
Some
but
damage.
sometimes
I got 8
it's just better to go sooner than later.
Oh my god, my dead slide, bro.
I wouldn't queue that early
I guess I'm sure
in this
this has
circle, but
one
that's
now.
just like that's just something I've learned from lots of trial and error.
1 minute.
How many
With
syringes
race
are we
new
at?
queue cooldown,
Four.
it's
Three.
rough queuing in the zone
Two
for
macros.
anything other than saving your
One.
life like last minute.
3 bets.
We need to hurry and get in this fucking building. There's a team up top.
Because if there's a team on the other
Don't
end of
think
that
there's a
and he
team
doesn't
in
have
here.
his
There's a
queue
team
anymore,
right
it could
here.
be rough
He's looking at us.
for portal plays and stuff.
Team
Oh
in
my
the-
god, there's a guy. There's a guy. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have.
The whole team.
We have to fight. We can't.
Yeah,
fight
Nade the
to
door
push
out, nade the door out.
He should be looking for a TP here, I think.
They're looking at us hard.
You bubble forward. Bubble forward.
We have to heal. You
Bubble forward. Now,
Bubble
Metro.
forward.
guys already
Bubbles
took a lot
up.
of damage.
Yeah.
I think they're right.
How many?
I see 2.
I don't have ult.
Evo shield almost cracked.
Yeah, there's no fences. I don't think it shouldn't be 3, right?
They're out. They're outrunning away from us. Careful. The other team is.
I'm watching your left.
They're
I'm
gonna
watching
play
your
in that
left. They're not
fucking
peeking.
corner.
Take
I
the
don't have
whole
ult.
build.
I have ult
Take the
now.
whole build. Fence everything off. Right
That's why
outside.
that team didn't. I mean, they can't
a good
commit
one.
that
Has
hard
to
on
be.
the inside, but
Yes, it is a duo. It is 100% a duo.
Our main problem is the team up top that just wants third party.
Care package
Yep.
coming in.
Yeah.
But we definitely can kill them.
we're already TP.
I don't know where to put ult.
You could
bro.
go directly under them.
At us.
You can put alt in this corner.
You could go up inside this building over here,
From where?
the circle building.
I'm up
It's a
top,
lot more.
probably,
That was really
okay.
risky. If that was a full team of 3 that peeked them right there, they're probably dead, unless they get the dome off fast enough. That's why. You know, it being a duo is a lot different then. But there are some options. It's rough. Was I in this team? No. I was coaching for this tournament.
There's no
Yeah,
angle.
they can shoot it. They can shoot it. They just
can
have to
hit
blow the door out.
And we could always hold.
But that's just
this
risky,
too.
right?
Yeah, I know. I
Like
was
my
thinking
gut
that
instinct would have
too.
been, fuck, I got a TP.
Probably we're gonna have to move to. I think I have an ultic cell. Yeah, I do. I have
portal.
3
I have
cells
an-
and 2
I have an
sponges. Can I have
ultic
a
cell.
bat?
Here, I'm dropping you 3 cells. Oh,
We have a bat. I need a bat.
Yeah.
You can have the
What
cell.
team did I coach? I coached
Alright,
Golden
I have
Guardians.
6 cells and 1 bat. 3 nades.
I have 4 and 1.
syringe. This
Boom,
is
circle.
It's gonna be the one that ends. We can play in the.
I already watched. Well,
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I
think
already,
what we
I
do
already
is
did
these teams,
TSM.
They might
I'm 8.5
fight
hours
up
in deep
for
on my stream,
hill
homie.
control. Like that team has to come out, and then
Unless
we
we push
we
left.
third, maybe, or we play underneath. Like in the ravine right here. That's
what I was
really
also thinking
sketchy.
with bubble.
Yeah, it's sketchy though.
pray
It is
on bubble.
sketchy.
Super sketchy.
But we did talk about this. So this
Find
is
a
the
portal
game actually
spot
where
ASAP once
this
we
is
get
the game-
around this, no problem.
Yeah, I know. That team.
this is the game where TSM played in the ravine. And it's almost exactly kind of like what I was saying, where I was surprised they played it only because like most teams wouldn't play it, but I did run it by as like a potential option, and they ended up actually doing it. But I mean, I'm sure SF here is not the only team that's feeling the same way about that ravine, where hey, it's playable, but it is a little sketchy. I don't actually know where they ended,
It's
where
right
SF
there.
actually ends up playing. I'm surprised Turns isn't doing more scouting. Turns plays like a very like backline Wraith.
We need to force them
You know,
into each
like,
other.
if I'm
These
Wraith,
2 teams. We need
Like
to.
Pride is the IGL here, right? Very clearly, he is the one calling, talking about everything. But like, I feel like if I'm Turns, I should be portaling,
them
or
up
at least
top into
looking
each
for
other.
portals, looking where to go.
Someone's getting shot at from right here.
Don't shoot those guys. Like, let them
That
get
team
in.
is peeking right there. Yeah.
No, like we gotta shoot them
Yes,
so they don't
Jotun.
come out here. I mean, you might just have to portal us underneath, and hopefully these 2 teams up top, fight each other.
We're just.
There's no way they should get free
Definitely.
peeks though if we're underneath.
I mean, if we can run there, I can portal us in a good spot maybe if we see it. If I portal us there, we're like in shambles.
Yeah. The Watson's just watching us, so it's gonna be hard to get there.
Gamer before we go. This team's still here. I hear them.
Yeah, I know. You.
They're gonna grief.
They gotta
you
think.
gotta
If that team is
portal
still there,
us
they
forward
gotta
or
do something.
Let's go this way.
I'm gonna push you on portal.
There's a team in there already.
Then
Like
we're gonna get
there
their
has
after
to be.
this.
I mean, they can
We're
play
going there
late.
still? We have
I
10
mean,
they
we
seconds.
have to-
unless we fight top. Like, we have to fight up here. Well, I hit 47 blue.
Thing is, we got so many third parties that can come on us.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we go, let's just try underneath. I think that's the safest
Portal?
play right now.
Sure.
They're fighting over here. No, walk up right now.
Fucking
Go,
Metro
walk-
just.
I'll bubble if needed. I'll bubble
Go,
if
go,
needed.
go, go. Get under it before they can.
Very
start-
conservative with the portal.
You keep your team behind us.
Like I said, it's almost like.
They're looking. We have the dome.
I'll stop
We
that.
gotta-
You
I'll
have to
pause it
dome. You
after.
have to dome. You have to dome.
Don't,
The
they
dome.
got the
Come on,
I just
dude.
got the kill from
No.
behind.
There's
I didn't
another
get the
team.
dome quick enough. I got fucking thirsty. The dome, pass them up.
It's okay. Okay, stop.
Hey, kills.
Yes.
Focus
Yes.
us.
I down one. All
That's
dead.
okay.
Push up here. Push up here. We have to push them.
Focus.
Path weak. Path one.
Just half the dome.
I can talk a
have
lot
to
about
go.
this right
Go,
here.
go.
All the way from when they got in here. Let's see what time they got in here by.
Yeah.
That's
It's
what I was
really hill control. It's gonna be the one that ends.
So they got in here before the zone even
5 cells,
closed.
6 cells, and
So
1
they've been
back.
in here for a
3 nades, 4
solid
and 1.
2.5-ish minutes.
This is-
And I almost never see them actually commit to an idea of where to portal. Like Pride keeps saying like, oh, you just gotta portal us somewhere. You just gotta portal us somewhere. And that needs to like Turns isn't scouting it. Like yes, Metro should have domed, but to be honest, they should have never been in this position anyways. There was 0 portal to get a Jibby and a Watson across this field without dying. There needed to be a portal way sooner. I like the way Pride goes about talking about what needs to be done. Like he's very proactive, but I think he needs to like a lot of IGLs do this, which is what separates a lot of like the big men from the boys, where like they'll kind of suggest what to do, But, you know, think of any of the dominant teams. Like, again, it's great that we're watching first and second because I feel like TSM and this team are complete polar opposites in almost everything I've seen. So it's a very interesting contrast, and they're also both first and second in the tournament. But like, you know, were it to be Hal, Reps, or even Mac in this situation, these guys would be screaming for a port at like a particular place, right? I think Pride, if Turns isn't going to go out and like scout a portal, like most wraiths, which is fine. A little weird, but fine. Pride needs to be less suggestive on what to do and more assertive on like, yo, fucking port us here, please. Like, take us here, right? He's suggesting, oh, we should portal somewhere. He said it like 3 times. But no, not only did he not suggest a location, it was never... The Turns never even said anything. Like, there's just a lot of... That should have just been completely avoided. They should have just ported somewhere. Even if you don't take the port, at least you have an option, right? Like, just because you set a portal doesn't mean you need to keep it. You need to at least... you can at least have that option of taking it. If not, fuck it, go somewhere else. But that alone, that was the very first and most glaring problem. Yeah, Metro could have domed, but they should not have been in this position to begin with.
Circle.
I'm gonna speed it up until like they start moving again.
That,
So like, this is what is weird to me, is Turns' positioning here. The majority of this time, he spends like back here, and I'm not really sure about why. Like Turns, I respect Turns as Wraith, but sometimes like stuff like this, which I'm kind of like, you know, why are you not like on this door and scouting, you know? Like he did go up to this window and he looked over here to like look for this team, but not once did he ever scout the teams ahead and see where he can place a portal, right? Like as Wraith, your job is to get, you can get more information about your immediate surroundings as a Wraith than any other character, so you need to do that. Because you have to plan for your team, right? This is why everyone says, you know, for example, Reps is IGL for TSM, because there's like a lot of the macro calling. But this is why when it comes down to the late game, and when it comes down to when the portal is required, you see Hal step in, and you see Hal constantly scouting, constantly being on his toes and looking for a place to port, looking for a place to take his team. That's the race job. You can be the best IGL in the world on Watson, but you can't. That doesn't mean you'll always find the best spot for your Wraith to port, if that makes sense. This is not a CRT monitor, no. It's a curve monitor. But anyways.
Watching us, so it's gonna be hard to get there.
Gamer before
Even then, like, there was... I don't know, there's just a lot wrong with this rotation.
This team's still here. I hear that.
Yeah, I know.
You're in Griffin.
Yeah, like you gotta portal us forward or something, I think.
I think this is like the second or third time Pride said that.
Let's go this way.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push you on a portal.
There's a team in there
Wait, what did he say?
already. I know.
You're in Griffin.
Yeah.
What did
you gotta
Turns here
portal us forward or
say right
something,
here?
I think.
Let's go this way.
I'm gonna push you on a portal.
There's a team in there already.
Something push in and then portal? I don't
We're gonna
know.
get third party for this. We going there still? We have 10,
I mean,
20
we
seconds.
have to unless we fight top. Like, we have to fight up here. Why hit 47 blue?
Thing is, we got so many.
Oh,
third
you wanna
parties
push or
that
you wanna
come
portal?
out.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Like-
If we go, let's just try underneath. I think that's the safest
Portal?
play right now.
Sure.
They're fighting over here.
I guess Turns
No,
asked for portal
Walk
right
up right
there.
now.
Fucking Metro.
So this is a discussion that needs to happen like within the team. Your Wraith should never be second guessing her portals like this, ever. And this is something that needs to be like actively discussed, like on how to do it, right? Every team I was on, for the most part, every time I would always just tell my Wraith, like, look, even if like I was IGL or somebody else was IGL, I'd be like, look, I might make the call, but you are the Wraith. If you see a play that I don't or the other person doesn't, you take that play and you tell us, right? Like, you have to respect and trust your teammates. It seems like too much of it is resting on Pride's shoulders when it doesn't have to. They need to be more proactive on their rotations.
I'll bubble if needed. I'll bubble.
Go. Get under it before they can fucking...
You can keep your team behind us.
Definitely should have bubbled here.
They're looking. We have
He had a lot of
time.
time.
You
He had
have to
a-
dome. You have to dome. You have to dome.
Don't,
The
don't,
dome.
don't.
Come on,
I just
dude.
got killed.
He had a lot of time to bubble. He definitely had a lot of time to bubble. But also they should have ported a lot sooner. So just a lot fundamentally wrong here in terms of like the team dynamic. Not just in the calls, but just how they actually played all of that. Lot wrong here.
No.
There's another team.
I got fucking thirsty.
I want to see. I'm curious why
Okay,
Metro
okay,
didn't.
stop.
It kills.
Yes.
Focus.
Yes. I down one. All
That's
dead.
okay.
Push up here. Push up here. We have to push them.
Focus.
Path weak. Path one.
Just half the dome.
So might as well take the time to talk about how to portal and how to play Wraith Gibby rotations for those that I guess don't know.
We had that too, bro.
So in this particular example, they could have easily gotten away with just porting to, I don't know, like the cliff or something. Because if you play the ravine, which is what they initially decided that they maybe might want to do, if you play this ravine, and let's just assume that there isn't a team down there, which ended up being TSM. But let's say you have the ravine all to yourself and you play it by yourself. Any team, like yes, in terms of like low to high ground, it's like a really bad place to hold. But any team that's on the high ground, in order for them to poke at you, has to expose themselves to a lot of other people that might have an angle on them. So, although it's a really shit spot, it's also kind of a good spot at the same time. It's a very weird place. But anyways, just to show people kind of like what you have to, or how to do a Gibby Wraith portal. Let's say they wanted to play it super fucking safe, right? They wanted to use all of their, I'm not saying they should have done this, by the way, just for the record, but I'm just explaining to people how Gibby Wraith works if you don't know. Anytime you have to make a super awkward rotation with a Gibby Wraith team, the way to do it is on paper, like in an ideal world, is Wraith portals. She finds somewhere. It doesn't even have to be the most defensible position. It doesn't really matter as long as it's in the circle. But she basically will find a portal anywhere in, and then the Gibby typically stands right on top of the portal, like literally right on it. So as soon as it pops, he goes through. If the Wraith is under a lot of heat, she falls back for a little bit. She goes back through the portal while the Gibby is coming through. Gibby throws down the dome shield. The Watson follows the Gibby. Wraith comes back if she left. And then all of a sudden, you're in the circle. You're safe under a Gibby shield for like 15 seconds. And then you can kind of figure out what to do after that. That's how to do like a really safe, like all-in Gibby Wraith rotation. They could have just probably Wraith portaled into the ravine. Yes, TSM was there, but I believe they probably could have played that, or they could have at least like played up. They could have just done anything. They literally could have done anything better than what they did here. Just so much miscommunication, lack of scouting.
I'm gonna push you on a portal.
Like
There's a team in there already.
turns should have been scouting
We're
here.
gonna get third party for
There's
this.
no way you make a portal just off your IGL's calls and not understand where everybody is as the Wraith. Like, you know, your IGL could be like, yo, portal here, you know, portal here, ping, 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 whatever. But as the Wraith, you still need to be scouting for your own good. Because you need to understand the teams that are around you and all the teams that are going to shoot at you when you start portaling, right? Like, it's great if you listen to your IGL and telling you where to port, but you still need to know all of the teams around you. I don't think there's much more to say on this. I think I spent a lot of time on this, but there was a lot wrong here. A lot wrong. And then obviously the Gibby bubble definitely could have came out. I don't know why he took so long on it. But it wasn't the initial, it wasn't the underlying fundamental problem. There's a lot of, I guess, maybe disagreement between the leadership and turns. I don't know. That was just a really bizarre rotation. Or lack thereof.
We're going there still?
Let's move to the next one.
We have
I
10,
mean,
20
we
seconds.
have to unless.
Just half the dome.
TSM.
This is the game, I believe TSM wins. Yes, right here.
Dream team.
So it depends. I mean, a lot of that depends on their team structure. Last one. A lot of Gibbies will wait for their IGL to call the ult. Sometimes it depends on the individual player. Some players have the wherewithal to understand when to use it on their own. To me, that if someone is very hesitant on using their abilities until someone tells them to use it, to me that demonstrates a bit of lack of like confidence in themselves with the character. Doesn't matter if you've been playing that character the entire time, but if you aren't sure when, or maybe not even a lack of confidence, but maybe a lack of a team dynamic where they're allowed to do that, right? Because there are some IGLs that are like, oh, you use this ult and I didn't tell you to, which is bad. You shouldn't be like that. You should trust your players to do what they have to do when they have to do it. Because you can't be all three sets of eyes, you know? Sometimes your teammates will see something you don't, and you can't make that call for them.
No doubt.
It's good when you can, but like calling a portal and calling, like anytime I play on a team, I always tell my teammates, like, look, if you see a play, you take that shit, you know? Just make sure you comment, right? Communication's everything. I think they definitely are a lot better than people give them credit for, despite playing on controllers.
The CP is
Put us in there.
Where?
In this thing.
First floor? Where it's taken?
Yeah.
Where's the other, that's the other building, right?
Yeah, other building, other building.
that way.
They're shooting at me.
Careful, don't get them stuck.
We're in here, dude.
Uh-oh.
Take a
I
photo
just
back.
took it.
Take it back.
They fenced it.
What about that?
A little sloppy on the comms there. That's another, I mean, oh, they're in here is not the best comm. If you were the Wraith player in this situation, your comm needs to be, don't take. You know, his team, they gotta work on their portal plays a lot. I mean, obviously it's fine, they take it back, no harm, no foul. But just because nothing bad happened there doesn't mean it's not bound to happen because of that fundamental, like, that's just a fundamental mistake, right? That needs to be calmed heavily. Do not take.
We're stuck here. Yes, they're in train, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we can run it. We might have to.
They did take portal too quickly, but he also didn't say anything about it other than, oh, they're here. Oh, they're here.
Run the train.
Like, to me, oh, they're here doesn't mean necessarily don't take. That just means they're in the area. Like, it's just like, I'm a big stickler on Wraiths overcalming the shit out of their portal. Because at the end of the day, Wraith is the only character when she portals that knows what she's looking at. You know, I can't look through the Wraith's eyes. I don't know what intel she has that I don't. The only, like, you don't have to say anything about your portal when you're portaling other than what your team needs to do immediately after. I'm doing well, QZ. How are you?
Like, deadass, we need to get out of here. This pod is so fucking
I don't know
garbage.
anything about that shred.
And you gotta dome us.
Go then.
Go
It is very
bottom,
confusing.
go bottom.
Yeah, I'm sure. Fair.
One of us
They're
is
in
being
it, they're in it.
immediately.
Yep,
Oh,
they're
I
in
don't
it.
know, Spaceman. Trying to King's Game today? I'm going to sleep
Some
soon.
left. I can't. That
Just got
kid just got
knocked.
ripped. Push for the bottom over here.
He
They just
got
res.
res. Yep.
I think maybe on them.
I don't know. I'm putting ult down.
Bottom.
This is a very strong spot. So this is the, as I've been saying, at least for the TSM review and a couple others, this is hopefully, let me see if Turns opens his map ever, because then I can talk about this a lot easier.
We're kind of a little bit lower than I'd like, but
Okay, perfect. All right, so this circle is very obviously going to be, well, you can't see it, but for the most part, the way it's oriented, this is very obviously going to be a Lava City circle. Especially because I know that because I watched the other game. Plus, I know the path beacon. Anyways, it's obviously a Lava City. When this circle is like this far out like this, there's almost no way it's Geyser. So it's probably gonna be Lava City, which it is. So this in general, and I'm just gonna repeat this because I've already talked about this, but fuck it. This is something I like to call playing the DPP. Okay, and that stands for the Deep Pocket Principle. I coined that. It's not all that great, but I coined it anyways. I don't care. I'm proud of it. So what this basically means is this entire corner, anytime you can play in the deep corner of a circle that you know is going to be in for a while, is very heavily advised that you can do that. So if you notice, like, this deep pocket, like, they're basically in the corner here. If any team pushes them from anywhere, that team is going to get beamed by every other team existing. So this is usually a very safe bet. It can allow you to make a lot of big it can allow you to basically have some very, very safe placement. So this building is extremely fucking safe. On top of the fact that the circle has a tendency to end down here. Lava City circles basically are, there's one out here, like right south of this building compound. There's one by this building. There is one basically right around this, right around exactly where they are. And there's one like right out in this area. I think there's one here too, but that kind of goes hand in hand with this one. It could pull down here. That is an older circle. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. But this is strong. This will allow them to be very, very deep. And when you are this deep, you can third-party most teams pretty easily. Unfortunately, they are on the low ground, so they're not going to be getting big angles on anyone in particular. But this is really safe. This is a really safe tournament placement.
I have
Trying to
2
portal
more.
something.
So I'm sure not
here.
much
Oh,
is
yeah,
going
you're
to
right,
happen
I
here,
got
so
him.
we're going to speed it up because they're just going to play this safe.
Other build.
More likely to than a mouse and keyboard player.
Oh, pardon me, on me. Wall, inside. Nope, I don't have nades. They're burning my door, bring it door.
Okay, well, I fucked it up. Alright, we're going to go back to normal speed.
I'm regenning because I don't
On the
have 4
port.
cells.
There's another port somewhere.
Drop 2 cells right here.
Right, just
This
put
kid's
the
getting
portal.
hard naded inside.
This seems
He went through the
broken,
port. He went through the port. Went back to the port. Came back through. There's a full
It
team
went
in
through.
Full team in there.
purples. All purple, I think. I think this is Rograt in them. Maybe not. I don't know.
Rogue Rat. I don't think you've ever heard anyone actually call him Rogue Rat.
Let's go,
Keep going,
boys.
keep going.
Let's go, boys.
Alright, keep it.
Doors.
Keep
We
it
gotta
clean.
watch doors.
We gotta watch our doors. We have to
I'm
watch our
watching
doors.
this- I'm watching
We're
this
back
one.
there up.
I don't have
Do you
any
want to
doors.
go up second
This is
floor,
lessing
or
me
do you want
out.
to stay bottom floor?
If 2 no doors, they can just second story
Second
safer,
free?
but
There's 2
they're
doors
gonna
on
like end
second.
on us, or I don't know, it was full ending.
It might end right here. There's one that ends right there on that ping.
I mean,
This was a bit of
we
a
gotta watch a lot of things right now.
abstract ending, to say the
You
least.
wanna go to second?
Fighting,
We
fighting,
got 2
fighting
doors.
right here.
Which character did I put play on the sticks on? Probably
I can
Jibir
bubble and
Watson.
we could peek this a little bit harder. You wanna
You
try
guys-
to get all these?
Second is conservative as fuck for really placement.
We
At the end
have
of the day,
to-
it's
we
whatever
have
they're
to
good at.
play bottom then.
And whatever
we
your
need
team is
kills.
good at.
Like we need to be getting
That's probably my ideal. Jibir
picks
Watson.
or like stealing kills from other people.
Watch a certain door. So with this one,
Yeah,
watching this one.
I've got the front one. I've got the front one.
I think this one. I'm trying. I have a G7. I can get pics from far.
outside.
Bottom floor right here. TPing, TPing. He might be going second.
Gun
He
me,
might
gun
be
me.
going second.
On me. He's one. He's second.
watching portal, I'm watching
Killed him.
portal.
Dead.
Shots.
Dead. Portals, nice.
Big shots.
Purple. I'm dropping my blue. I'm picking up the blue.
I'm picking.
I drop purple. I drop purple.
I've got her blue right here.
Where?
There's a box right
You
here.
gotta
Or
loot a
I'm
lot
just
faster
peeking.
than
I'm
that.
just
Turns,
peeking.
you gotta loot a lot faster than that, homie.
Is there a bolt?
I don't know. Where's the blue? Where's the blue? Where's the
It's
or
on
the
back.
purple?
It's on the
Purple's
back.
under the zip.
Do we get 2 kills for that or no?
Oh, I think we only got one. Someone else killed the path.
Right there, purple.
Don't get banned. Make them come to us. They have to come to us. They're nading. They want to come in. They want to come in. Watch this. Hard.
Watching.
Good calls. Good comms.
38.
They went outside. They fenced it.
Right in the back of our build. Back of our build.
Someone's on second. Yeah, that's them.
They're right here. They're gonna be up here. They're setting up behind the build. We're still in.
Wraith weak.
Nice.
So this is again very, very interesting placement positioning. This is very similar to the last game where they were out and fucking by Harvester when they were planning their rotation. And I'm not sure why this is. But Turns is not only the Wraith, he also has red armor. And he's just playing this corner. I get like he's kind of bouncing back and forth between the 2 doors. I think he's trying to be like kind of like the mediary between the 2, you know, just because he doesn't know which one's going to get pushed. But right here, one thing you can almost safely say is nobody is pushing this door to the left. Because look at this. Everybody else that's like in the circle or looking to get into the circle, like no one's pushing this door right here. And that's just not happening. Right? I feel like most aggressive rates would probably be playing this door and trying to get any damage out on this team over here. You don't have to be pushing out, but just like something a little bit less passive than this. Again, I get that he wants to play between both doors and like kind of see which ones people are gonna go through, but you can pretty much write this one off. Ain't no one going through this one up here, like this door on the left. It's just not gonna happen with the way the circle is. It would be a death sentence for anybody to show their face there, because you have two big rooftops looking in. You probably got the team potentially like on the side here that also would be looking in. It's just Turns' positioning is a little bit of a
Over here. TPing.
What up,
There's a
Alfredo?
team down low. Wraiths just TP'd second floor, I think.
A bit,
Or
Clemmy.
second
I
floor.
think they
There's
threw a
team
couple
second
people
floor
off.
now.
We're still in here.
I'll talk about them in a bit, Beastie.
This
Just
is a
remind me
circle
after the game's
right in
over.
front of us, right here.
Yeah.
On that ping.
Start getting nades if you can.
Yep.
If y'all have any.
But like, so again, not only is it just like really passive, but like I think, like, as I was saying last game, like your job as a Wraith is to get information constantly. You have the means more so than most of your teammates to do that. Him playing back here, like so right now, all that I've heard, this is the last game. All that I've heard is where they think the circle's gonna end, and that's it. I don't know a game plan. Like, they've been running around, but there's no game plan. This is kind of what I was talking about. Their late game is very messy. You always need to be communicating a plan. You need to be scouting ahead, knowing exactly where all other 19 players are. A lot of that is missing. It almost seems like they're getting, every game, they seem to be getting into the spots that they need to be getting, but then after that, they almost kind of just fly by the seat of their pants. So, a lot of potential here, but they just need to work on this late game a little bit more.
I have nades, I have 2 nades.
Like,
I have a
I
gold
can
barrel.
bubble.
Again, if you've been
when
watching
this final
since the
circle
TSM
comes, I
VOD
can bubble
review,
right here and still come
you'll
out.
know
have to watch
these
the
guys
boat.
are.
Careful of this.
It's
They're gonna,
it's polar
we have so
opposite.
many optics,
TSM
so
always had a
definitely,
plan
like,
and they
maybe
executed.
something that could get up there.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. Move
I
the
don't
give
know.
you.
Now they're
move
actually
this-
talking about stuff.
No,
Bring
you-
the armors.
Now they're actually
right
talking about
outside our door here. We have to keep watching everything.
Yep. I'm watching right here.
Getting like 50 FPS.
Bring the armors. I know, same.
That might be a reason why he's playing
There's one
passive.
armor that we need to bring.
That
I
is true, Nate, but that is fucking.
How many
apparently
ulti cells do we have?
Incredibly hard to do.
We
It's
have
gonna take
2 or
3 to get me
3.
full.
Yo, imagine some like random just walked in there.
Purple
and grabbed
Evo,
that
or
shit.
red Evo on a Wraith over here.
We have red Evo too.
There's
You
one
have
more
ult?
blue. Do we need 3 blues?
We're fine. We're fine.
About to close in. Get ready. People.
So like right here, I think he heard people on the corner. It could be people up top, but like, dude, I'd be over. Like, he keeps peeking this door. No one's gonna peek through this door over here. It's just not gonna happen. Not this late. I'd be over here like trying to at least like make an opening, get, I don't know, fuck any team over. Like, he's got red armor. He ain't getting picked. I don't know. It's very passive. He has red armor. They have a decent spot in the circle, and he's just very, very passive. I'm not
Am I
quite
in any
understanding.
door?
I'm ulting this back door. Drop the ulti
Yes,
cells on the
monitor.
ground.
I'm very
Okay.
tired right now.
Up right here. Get ready.
I'm hitting
I
blue
didn't
outside,
plan on
blue
streaming.
outside.
I did not plan on streaming today, but
They're fighting.
TSM won, and they allowed me.
They're fighting right
It's like
here.
right here. Sorry to pause it right in the heat of battle, but like, Turn should have been on this corner a lot sooner. He should have been peeking in place of Pride. You know, Pride walking out there as a Watson. Watson should never be your first person peeking like that, ever. Because then if he dies, you're just gonna be like, yo, dumbass, why the hell were you peeking like that? You're a Watson. Like, Pride is playing like the Wraith, and Turns is playing like the Watson, if I'm being completely honest. It's almost like they're like identical. They're like playing exactly flopped, right?
I'm looking for kills.
One pick.
One's one.
On me. Race one. Race one.
No, back.
Race one. Race one. Bro, Wraith is 1. Okay.
I'm here.
Back in him.
He's dead.
There we go. Let's fucking go.
Inside.
I need a heal. I need a bat.
Other side.
I have to bat.
Throwing on thermites. They're on staircase. They're on stairs. Popping ulti cells. 2. I need 2. Give me time.
Hands over here. Hands on pick.
Yep.
Yeah, we're just gonna portal play. That's all we have to do right now.
I don't know. It's like someone's sitting on it. The team like on it.
93% on alt. 94% on alt. I'm gonna alt final circle. I'm gonna place bubble right here.
I'm probably gonna portal this wall. Yeah.
We got a minute. We got a minute.
Big Kobe's coming. Yeah. He sure is.
I killed one.
Nice.
Killed Foster.
Keep back from this wall.
Wait, that was
Red
the,
Evo back
he
there.
self-res or something.
You're gonna have to dome. You're gonna have to dome like close
Start
to the
that
wall,
portal.
and we can play in your dome.
I'm gonna dome right here so they can't push in the dome with us.
What, Kobe?
They're shooting your fences back here.
No,
Fake portaling. Watching.
no, they're really not. That's what I'm saying. Like, their late game is like
Rails,
almost
through portal.
just existing. in them.
One's dead above us.
I'm watching this port. There's a team back here.
They're rising above us.
All right,
He died. The res
I
died
think second
above
place was like 11
I'm
grand.
putting dome right there on ping.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yep. We got this, baby. We're gonna win this shit.
Didn't mean to put it there.
Turns, maybe med kit. I don't know. If you feel confident.
Yep. When do I
Throw
start
it out
it?
right here.
Close in. Yeah.
All's going down.
Wait. You're good. You got it. Where's the TP?
Bubble down.
I'm going in bubble.
Bubble. Team above us.
TSM in front. Kill them. Kill TSM. I killed.
Happy life.
Path on me.
Down. You got this.
I died.
I'm
God,
gonna keep
that
portal
fucking
flying.
grenade, dude.
I went for it.
Someone.
How did TSM win?
I knocked. I had
Caliber
to
Lily.
reload, bro. I
With
ran
the
out of
goddamn
ammo.
I saw the
Kobe.
knock and tried to get in.
That's how.
I kept portal playing. We got a guess second or third.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully
no.
that gets us
Bad
tied
portal.
up for second at least, bro. That's fourth with 11.
Bad portal and very early
Fourth
med
is
kit.
5 points. 16.
Oh, I know FPSI. Oh, trust me, I already watched that entirety of that VOD.
I got killed by T-squared.
Alright, so-
Aberdeen with the kill.
Alright, so let's recap.
I saw the green path and I.
Let us recap. Okay. Several different things going on here. It's very interesting that the two teams that did tonight were both not only first and second place, they landed next to each other, and they were almost complete polar opposites in almost every aspect. Very interesting. And they still placed like first and second respectively. So, definitely a good job on the Sola Fide boys. For being a team only together for about a month or two. Certainly good for them. Good of them to pull out a fucking second place in a tournament like this. Certainly a lot to work on for sure. They definitely. I just feel like they lack a little bit of control in the late game in almost every single aspect. But otherwise, solid job. Love to see the boy Turns, my former teammate, doing well. And Metro and Pride are good guys too. So good on them. But again, if anything, I don't want to seem like I was like a little too negative on them. I just do think that they have a lot to learn and grow upon, and I'm excited to see how they do in subsequent tournaments.